Do we have a quorum?
Hi, Christine. Yes, we have quorum now.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So everyone, welcome to the Transportation Committee of February for Community Board 4. My co-chair, Del Covrino, and myself are welcoming you. We are by Zoom, by some executive order from somebody, God probably by now. It changes every week. It changes. Who is giving us an executive summary, an executive order? So anyway, we are by Zoom. We don't know how it will be next month. It's changing all the time, and here we are. We have so the protocol is that we are listening to the presentation of the applicant. So when the community board meetings, the community board members ask questions, then we open it to the public, and then we regroup internally between the community board members, and we make a resolution. That resolution then goes to the full board, where it is passed generally, and this become a real official resolutions. I'm going to go through our members, and each of you can introduce themselves. Gwen, you're on mute.
Yes, I was.
Right.
I'm Gwen Billig.
Okay. Charles.
Hey everybody, I'm Charlie.
Blake.
I'm Blake Carissa.
All right. Jesse.
Hi, Jess Greenwald.
Helen.
Hi, Alan Oster, Chelsea.
Okay. David Warren. David.
Hi, David Warren.
Alice.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Brett.
Hi, Brett Purper, public member of the committee, and I apologize, my video isn't quite stabilized yet. I'm gonna
It's good.
I get
Looks
that fixed.
good.
It'll get fixed in a moment.
All right. Viren.
Hi everyone, Viren Brambit. I'm happy to join you here. I'm going to also work on my video.
Okay. And we are also joined by Janine Pretante Yusuf, who is our assistant district manager, or whatever is your title these days, Janine. But
Hi, everyone. I'm the community associate for the board.
Community associate. I never remember the title. Sorry. Essentially, Janine does everything. So she is really the important person on this group. And then Colleen Chattergoon from DOT, who is also the most important person on the call. And thank you, Colleen, for helping us in multiple ways.
Good evening, everyone.
Okay, so we're going to start. We're very excited to welcome DCAS, which means Department of, I don't know what it means, DCAS. So that will be the beginning of your presentation. DCAS personnel, which they are solely responsible for a lot of administrative stuff in the city. And amongst all those things, the municipal fleet and converting it to electrical vehicles. So I will turn over to you. I don't know whether Keith and you can introduce the people who are with you.
Okay, thank you very much, Christine, and thank you for inviting DCAS, the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, to present. I'm here with my colleague, Brandon Clark, and we're going to talk about the electrification, a little bit of the city fleet and what we're doing to electrify the fleet. I should say, for those of you who don't know DCAS, and I'm greeting you from the municipal building on the 23rd floor, my particular haunt here. But you know, DCAS manages really 5 major things for city government. Obviously, we're going to talk about the fleet, but the human capital program, the civil service system, the largest, you know, hiring programs in the world, the procurement program, billions of dollars of expenditure in buying and contracts, goods and contracts, the real estate program for the city, and then the energy program. In the energy program, on one hand, it's the utility bills, and maybe not so exciting, but more importantly, it's a big part of the facility sustainability program, the building sustainability program. And you know, I think something that's not generally known is how important DCAS really is to the sustainability goals and programs of the city. And that's what I'm going to talk about here. So thank you on behalf of Mayor Adams and our Commissioner Don Pinnock for inviting me. I'm going to share my screen, but I also did send a copy of this presentation a few minutes ago. So if you can all confirm you can see my screen, I'll get going.
Yes.
All right, great. So I will get going. I'm Keith Kerman. I'm the Chief Fleet Officer for the City of New York and a Deputy Commissioner here at DCAS. I am a 29-year veteran of city government and a permanent employee. I spent 17 years at a place I'm sure you all know, Central Park, the Arsenal. I ran citywide operations for the Parks Department for 17 years, working out of that extraordinarily lovely building until Mayor Bloomberg asked me to come down to City Hall and manage the city fleet. And I've had the privilege to continue under Mayor de Blasio and Mayor Adams. So a little bit about the city fleet. You know, your city government vehicles are about 28,500 and getting smaller. Mayor Adams has asked us to reduce the fleet. I'll talk a little bit about that. But sometimes people think about the fleet and they think, oh, it's cars and SUVs and commuter cars. Our fleet are the core public services, the fire department, the ambulances, the sanitation trucks, the sweepers, the TOT street paving and repair equipment, the DEP water and sewer maintenance equipment, the Parks Department equipment that maintains the parks, the beaches, the trees, the garbage pickup. 50 agencies in total, the biggest certainly being police, sanitation, and fire. But really, you know, the fleet is a critical asset in providing day-to-day services 24/7 throughout the city. So we're here to talk about sustainability. And, you know, we've been trying to lead in sustainability for a long time now, but especially recently, and we'll talk about that. You know, we operate nearly 20,000 vehicles on some form of alternative fuel today: electric, hybrid, biofuels, a small natural gas program, not a focus. Solar, we're actually implementing solar. It's actually the largest alternative fuel powered fleet in North America, public or private at the moment. We operate under some major policy goals, and these are the links, and I'll share those links. These are all public records, but simply, we're trying to do 50% greenhouse gas and fuel reduction by 2025, not far from now, 80% by 2030. And we're trying to go to an all-electric fleet for most models by 2035. And I'm going to share a little bit more in detail about that. And then hopefully, if the models are out there and the market continues to develop, for the emergency and specialized equipment, fire trucks, ambulances, snow plowing equipment for sanitation, emergency service response, you know, the ESU trucks for police. This is going to be probably 2040. And that's where our current goal is. We're going to need the market to develop on that. Some of those models don't exist. And we work under executive orders now, but there is a legislative effort you may be aware of. We testified a few weeks ago about codifying our electrification goals that are now by mayoral executive order into city law. And we're, you know, we have some issues, some details, but we are generally very supportive of doing that. So one thing I wanted to point out to you, if you have time and you have interest, we just published what we call a Clean Fleet Transition Plan. And this is a document that's actually required under Executive Order 53. It's a document we did with the United States Department of Transportation, the Volpe Center. It's a public record document. You can Google it. It's about 80 pages, but I think it's enjoyable reading, where we went through in detail the challenges, the real issues for electrifying a fleet of this complexity. You know, generally, you might argue the last fleet in the world you would try to electrify is an emergency services fleet, right? Most of my customers are police, fire, and sanitation, all emergency units. In fact, we're trying to lead nationally and internationally by electrifying that very fleet, which is, a pretty challenging fleet. There are a lot of real issues in doing this, right? I'm going to talk about the successes and where we are, but it's a challenging operation. So we published a report going through all 191 types of vehicles we operate, 120 on the on-road side and 71 on the off-road side, and what the issues are, what the challenges are, what the opportunities are. So I did want to point you to that report. I'm going to go through a couple slides of it, but if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty and the details, it's all there about what we're trying to do, and we're going to update that report every 2 years so we can share with all of New York and frankly with everybody operating a fleet, how this transformation is going. So some really good news. The good news, 15 years ago, they did a video, a movie, whatever you want to call it. Who killed the electric car? The electric car industry was in such dire straits that they were kind of just memorializing its demise, right? And that is clearly a premature obituary. Just 15 years later, now we may be gone too far where everyone thinks electric vehicles are inevitable. And if you're a Marvel fan, I always say, everyone thinks they're now Thanos. The truth is that's not true either. It's an achievement. But electric really is moving forward very positively. And one of the things that we found is that on the on-road side, there are either existing now or within 5 years expected to be electric options for 84% of the on-road vehicles that we operate. A very substantial proportion, and that's more than I could have said just a few years ago. And then even on the off-road side, about 81%. So more of that is geared toward 5 years from now than today, but there are a lot of off-road solutions as well developing, and I'll show you some examples. So a lot of progress being made in electrification, still a lot more to go, right? So 16% of our models, again, like fire engines, ladders, plowing, garbage trucks, ESU trucks, do not have electric options in the market today, or it have to be developed. So there is still work to do to mature this market. There are also still some challenges, even where you have an electric pickup truck, it might not be able to plow or do certain off-road functions. So what are we doing? So we just announced with Mayor Adams just a few weeks ago, 1,000 new electric vehicles coming into the fleet supported by the Department of Transportation and hundreds of new chargers. And that's where we kind of want to be right now. So if we're going to electrify a fleet that is about 28,000 vehicles, and we're going to get that done by 2035 and 2040 for the trucks, we need to be at about 1,000 vehicles a year pace. And that's where we are. So we have 1,000 vehicles we did last year. We announced 1,000 vehicles. By the end of this year, we'll have another 1,000. This is our chart, and it's been a steady growth. So we're operating over 4,100 electric vehicles right now, plug-in vehicles, about a 50-50 mix between all electric and plug-in hybrids, although we're going to 80-20 or even 85-15 all electric. So we're trying to move more to the all electrics than to the plug-in hybrids, but there are still needs for plug-in hybrids. We should be at 5,000 plus by the end of the year, and that's kind of the pace we need to keep. We'll have to go a little ahead of that eventually, but a lot of that will depend on our progress, and I'm going to talk about that going to electrification for policing. So just some of our electric vehicles. This is our long-term goal, to have all your city fleet vehicles from all our agencies that we support be electric. And so it's one of my early favorite pictures, and we are definitely making progress, and every agency is involved, from law enforcement to public works to support. So the biggest fleets we operate are law enforcement, right? The police department is over 9,000 assets. We're also supporting the sheriff's office, the Department of Correction, law enforcement units at the Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Sanitation, the Parks Department, taxi enforcement. There's a lot of law enforcement vehicle fleet. So we are introducing the first all-electric model is the Ford Mustang, and we've bought over 220 of those that are in law enforcement now, being introduced in law enforcement capacities. We have another 100 or so on order. So we're taking that next step. We need to prove these in operations, and the police department, and I know the police commissioner announced a little bit about some of their redesign in their vehicle programs a couple of weeks ago, and mentioned the Mach-E and electric program. we have to see how these vehicles are going to do in action, how they're going to respond to, the range issues, to supporting lights and sirens, supporting long-term activations. One of the challenges in policing, of course, is these vehicles being operated multiple shifts, sometimes 24 hours a day. So, if you're a Parks Department vehicle and you're operating one shift a day, it's a lot easier to do electric than if you're a police vehicle that might be operating for 5-6 straight days every hour. And those battery and charging issues become more important. We're also looking forward to additional models coming into the marketplace. The Chevy Blazer SUV, a police model, is expected next year. So that will add to the models that we have. We definitely are going to need multiple models of electric vehicles in the marketplace before we can do scale transformation of the policing fleet. And currently we operate the Ford Interceptor Hybrid is the main police car for the city. And we are waiting and hopeful that Ford will come up with an all-electric Interceptor. That would be the path of least resistance for us if the same model we're doing now as a hybrid, the Ford Interceptor Hybrid, becomes all electric. That would help us. And if we had the Mach-E, the Ford Interceptor all electric, and a Chevy Blazer all electric, that would give us the vehicle models that we really need to make the police transformation. Some of the really great recent news is we're starting our first big buys into medium duty electric vehicles. 25% of the city fleet are work trucks, pickups and vans, trades vans, electricians, carpenters, plumbers. And I, of course, come out of the Parks Department. These are your cleaning crews, your repair crews, your playground crews that are maintaining all your public spaces out of the pickups. So we just made our first big order of over 500. You should start seeing them. They're outside, probably about 250 in operation now, and the rest are all coming in, especially the vans. The Ford Lightning's a little bit more behind, but we have a lot of vans that are out there, these e-Transits. So that's an exciting move. And again, that's a big part of the fleet, really just recently that we've been able to make this move in medium duty. Light duty, we have a lot of models, but not medium duty. We're certainly trying on the truck side, and that's where the majority of our diesel use is. The truck market is not as well developed, right? So there's a lot more, light duty. We know there are electric car options for sedans and SUVs and minivans. And we're going to get more of them, but they've made a lot of progress. The medium duty I just discussed, that progress is happening now, and really just the last year and a half. The trucking is more complicated. So we are buying 7 all-electric garbage trucks. They're actually coming in very soon. And we are very confident with our garbage trucks in their ability to pick up waste and do a scheduled waste route. But as the Commissioner of Sanitation talked about in a city council hearing a little while ago, we do not yet have a garbage truck that can plow, that can handle the rigors of 12-hour plowing shifts on an emergency basis. So that's something we're going to need to develop. And we're pushing the marketplace to do that. In the meantime, we have 400 between sanitation, DOT, and parks. We have about 400 garbage trucks that do not plow. And that's going to be where we focus our effort. And if you remember, I'm sure you've seen all the 6 and 16 yard, the smaller Parks Department garbage trucks. And I've been involved in buying those for 30 years. Those are the ones we really want to get electric, and we're working on that now. We're going to make a lot of progress on sweepers. I think we're going to electrify the 450 street sweeper fleet before we get to some of these other heavy duty fleets. So we have our first all electric street sweepers. I'm showing you them here. One for the full street sweeping, one for the bike lanes and kind of the side asphalt areas. We're going to be developing both a plug-in hybrid and an all-electric sweeper program so that we have options. But we're making a lot of progress in sweepers, and I think this is going to be an area you'll see a lot of electrification sooner. Of course, the city has announced through local law that we're going to electrify the school buses. There are 10,600 school buses. I track them. We do live tracking of them here out of DCAS, and it's a huge fleet. The first few were purchased by DCAS as city-owned vehicles. But as I'm sure you know, the whole fleet is actually a contracted fleet through the Department of Ed. So when I say the city fleet is 28,000 plus, it does not include the school buses. Those are not city-owned. Those are contracted through the Department of Ed. And the Department of Ed, through those contracts, is leading the way in this electrification. DCAS here to support with charging and wherever we can But that's really going to transform through the Department of Ed service contracts for busing. So we operate the largest electric fleet in New York State, one of the largest in the country, possibly the largest in the country, although we certainly know that Hertz and Amazon's and a lot of big companies are going to surpass us soon. I'm looking forward to that. I don't need to be the largest fleet. We want to see electric vehicles everywhere. We're also one of the largest electric charging networks in the nation. So we're currently operating 1,400 electric charging ports and growing. So we've committed to adding 200 fast chargers to the city fleet charging network every year through 2030, and we're funded for that. We operate about 140 fast chargers now, and we are in the building and process every day for both regular level 2 charging, which is slow charging, overnight charging, and then fast charging. Currently, our fast chargers are 50 kilowatt. It's about an hour to charge. So a lot better than a 7-hour, 8-hour overnight, but still not the gas station experience. We are going to be bidding a contract to go to 125 kilowatts to 250 kilowatts, much faster. So if we can get to 250 kilowatts within a few years, that's about a 10-15 minute recharge for a battery from 20% to 80%. That's more kind of, a lot cleaner and nicer than a gas station, but about the same amount of time. So that's where we want to get. And we have charging everywhere around the city. So if you just look at the map, EV charging is already through the city fleet everywhere. There are 20 chargers. We looked it up. There are 20 chargers in our network in Community Board 4. So we're in your neighborhood as well. I'm an Upper East Side resident. It's probably more in your neighborhood than mine. But we're pushing in every available parcel in space that we can find to add charging. DCAS mostly serves the city fleet, but we have offered 11 of our fast chargers to general public access. Randall's Island is probably the closest right now. We have a hub there to you all. But we're going to be growing that mostly in partnership with the Parks Department. So we're going to be trying to get as many of the fast chargers that we have available to the general public as we can. Obviously, if we're installing at a police precinct or one police plaza across the hall where I am has a lot of charging, we can't open those doors. Sanitation garages and their complexes, we can't open those doors. But where we can, and Parks has been our great partner in the public parking lots like World Trade Marina, Randall's Island, Midland and South Beach, and Staten Island, we're going to do that. And that is available information. That you have that link, and you can find out more about that and how to access them through that link. We just announced this week that we're going to be adding to our solar network. So one of the really big questions that we'll need to answer as we go down this path to electrifying an emergency services fleet is what happens when the lights go off? What if you have a blackout or a Sandy or a localized power loss? Please mute if you're on. So one of the things that we're investing in, and we're going to be looking at a lot of resiliency approaches, but one that we're actually leading the world in is completely freestanding solar carports. And these are not tied to the grid at all. They are tow and play and tow them and use them and can charge, usually about 2 to 3 electric vehicles within our world. So we already operate about 86. We're adding 71 right now. We just announced that this week, actually. And we're going to be looking to do more of this. We're going to be pursuing federal grants to try and have a solar resilient independent charging presence in every community board in the city. And we're pursuing grants to do that so that some number of these freestanding off the grid, these will work if everything else isn't, will be in every community board. And that's really our goal, to have that distributed throughout the city. Just a little bit more on charging. Again, if you're familiar with charging, there's the level 2 overnight charging, which we have over 1,000 units. The fast charging, that's the picture on the right-hand top corner. And that can be 50 kilowatts, anywhere up to 250 or 350 or more. But the higher you go in charging speed, the harder it is on your electrical grid, the harder it is on your infrastructure. So you just can't put a 250 kilowatt charger everywhere. There's a lot of infrastructure work. We partner with Con Ed. We work with Con Ed out in the streets and the facilities of the city every single day, developing charging infrastructure, doing what are called load letters, and assessing where we can put in charging. And what that'll cost. And then another picture of our solar program. We're starting some new types of charging. So this is our very first solar canopy. This is actually at the Department of Correction on Rikers Island, but we're going to be working to roll these out throughout the city. This is solar and electric charging. There are 6 chargers tied to this unit, and it's solar, but it is connected to the grid. So in this case, unlike the others that are completely freestanding and are great emergency assets, really they're emergency generators in many ways, this is a solar assist. So you get the solar power to support the charging, but you are on the grid. And so if you need additional capacity, you can have them. These are less expensive than the solar carports, but not as resilient since these are grid dependent. And one fun thing about this is, we've finally gotten to the place where we always think about vehicles and transportation as users of fuel, consumers of fuels, burners of fuel, polluters. We are now, and we're all of that, unfortunately, but we're now actually a producer of clean energy, right? So the fleet program is its own solar producer of clean energy. And, we really want to grow that. And we think it's a really interesting way for us to contribute on the sustainability side. We're absolutely partnering with the Department of Transportation. And I know someone is on from DOT on this call, Colleen, on the curbside program. So DOT is rolling out 120 curbside chargers. These are level 2 chargers, what we call the slower chargers, but these are available to the general public as well as to our fleet program. And we're certainly excited about the expansion of curbside. DCAS itself is interested in the potential to install some of our fast chargers on the curb. Some more on resiliency that I wanted to mention. We're going to be looking at battery storage opportunities. So that's what that in the middle, that FreeWire, we have a contract with FreeWire. That's a fast charger, but it's based on battery storage. So it recharges and it impacts the grid like a level 2 slow charger, but it fuels a vehicle like a fast charger. And the difference is that that battery pack. And that also is resilient. If the lights go out, the FreeWire unit will be working for probably about 24 hours. Not forever, but we'll get you probably about 24 hours of fueling on those batteries. And so it helps with the resiliency issue. We've also been investing in solar light towers. We operate about 110 solar light towers right now. I'm sure you're all familiar with the city's light towers in emergencies and for special events out of police and DOT, parks and NYCHA. So we're trying to make as many of those completely zero emission, noiseless, quiet, LED lighting, programmable as we can. And frankly, the only limiter to us is shade area, right? Sometimes these light towers are needed to be placed where there are buildings or trees and you can't, the solar won't work. But everywhere where a solar unit will work, we're investing in those. Some things I just want to mention about the EV transformation. One thing that's incredibly positive is that we're getting really low maintenance, right? So if you Google EV, they'll tell you, oh, the maintenance requirements are incredibly low, and they should be. You don't have an engine, a transmission, you don't have catalytic converters to steal, fuel lines. So we are one of the few organizations that's run electric vehicles in scale. This report is based on 200 leads, 200 volts for their entire lifetime. We're over 12, 13 years. And we've published on the maintenance achievement, and it's fantastic. It's 60, 70% lower maintenance over the life of these vehicles. And you can get that at the link that Axios reported on, but that was based on a report from us. There's a lot of transformation that has to go on for city staff. So we are retraining. New York City has 1,400 mechanics, and they're the backbone of what we do in the fleet. But of course, we have to retrain them to understand electric and electric battery operations, electric communication networks. The IT in electric vehicles is, if you're familiar with just the Teslas and Mach-E's of the world, is far more advanced than in the traditional combustion engine. And we're seeing a remarkable transformation of the traditional combustion engine technology and the traditional mechanical trade with 2 other trades, right? The electrical trade, and some of the people we now train are electricians because buildings and fleet are coming together in the charging. And of course, IT. These vehicles are highly computerized. These vehicles are as much computers as vehicles now, and our mechanics need to be trained to deal with that. I also want to mention the important emergency response component, and that's being led by the fire department. Look, electric vehicles are very safe vehicles. We have a fair number of fires in the city fleet, and almost all of them are with diesel and gas vehicles, right? So we're not, we've had our fires, and they're almost all with liquid fuel vehicles these days, and have been. However, electric vehicles can catch on fire, and when they do, they will burn very hot. That's one truth. We've learned some of that about the electric bikes. We haven't had any of these instances yet, but we are preparing for them, and we are working with the fire department on emergency response for electric vehicles when they're in crashes, making sure tow truck operators, drivers, emergency response, police and fire know what to do when an electric vehicle might be in a crash or in a fire. While we work to electrify, I just want to mention, we are still pursuing hybrid and more efficient vehicles. A fun fact, almost every single New York City Fire Department ambulance is actually a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. We have installed alternative power units so that when they idle on a battery, not on the diesel engine. Ambulances have to operate 24 hours a day, so that's a lot of idling and noise. We've moved that onto a battery. And the truth is they are plug-in units. They're part of our plug-in fleet. Still some challenges how to plug in the ambulances effectively. We know how to plug them in physically, but how to plug them in and not interfere with EMT operations is still a challenge. So this is actually a case where the hybrid unit systems work great. We're still working on what's the best way to charge them without interfering with what the EMTs have to do. And we're working to fast charge them, and they were not designed for fast charging. So we're working on some of that now. And also where we do not yet buy electric police cars, we are buying hybrids. Almost everything we buy in the police fleet is hybrid electric at this point, mostly hybrid still, as we make the early transformation to electrics. I also want to mention for the trucks, which are going to definitely electrify last, we are also implementing biofuels. We are one of the largest biodiesel users in the fleet and frankly in city buildings. Every city building, public and private, uses biodiesel in its heating if you use liquid fuels. And there's something called renewable diesel. Renewable diesel is a full switch out diesel fuel. It's complete 100% biofuel. And it will allow you to get out of diesel fuel altogether until we can get to zero emission electric options. Most renewable diesel is currently sold in the state of California, and then somewhat in Oregon and Washington state, all on the West Coast, because they have what are called low carbon fuel standards. And if you're following the environmental news, a discussion of a low carbon fuel standard is hot and heavy right now in New York State. We are really big supporters of that. We would like to stop using all diesel fuel in the city fleet for all your sanitation, fire, police trucks, maybe also then in heating oil, maybe also then in ferries. All of that's available to us in the next few years if we can develop a marketplace. We've used 1 million gallons of renewable diesel already, worked fine, perfect. It is exact specification as regular diesel. It's a complete switch out fuel. The real challenge is creating the marketplace on the East Coast because almost no renewable diesel is sold frankly anywhere than the West Coast. And DCAS is trying to lead and be an early adopter, but we really need this low carbon fuel standard to create a marketplace so that until we get to all electric, we can get out of fossil diesel. Just a few more slides and I'm happy to take questions. Of course, the goal is all of this is to reduce fuel use. We are doing that. We have a steady decline in fuel use. There are ups and downs. Big emergencies can change our fuel use because we obviously are mostly an emergency fleet, but we are making steady progress in getting out of liquid fuels, and that's just only going to keep going forward. What I'm showing you here doesn't include the now new impact of 1,000 electric, mostly all electric vehicles that just showed up. So a lot of progress being made. If you're interested in some more just public articles, again, I'm going to share this with you about what DCAS is doing, police and parks. We have some other material out there. I want to mention a couple other really exciting initiatives. One, of course, the most fuel efficient vehicle is one you do not operate. So under Mayor Adams, we are moving forward on a fleet reduction program, and I think the city will have more to say about that. We're kind of at the tail end of that. an initial reduction. I think we'll have more to say about that soon, but we are trying to find efficiencies wherever we can. And what we want to have is the most efficiently sized fleet we can, and wherever we do need to invest in vehicles to make them all electric, so we reduce their environmental footprint. I also want to mention on the safety side, just an exciting thing we're trying to lead on really nationally, if not in the world, is something called intelligent speed assist. Vehicles can be designed now so they will not speed. New York City, and I'm sure your committee, spend enormous amounts of time working on issues of speeding enforcement, speeding cameras, speeding laws. But if the vehicle couldn't speed in the first place, you could probably get there, get that transformation done in a very dramatic way. So we're trying to test this. We know it works. It's a big culture change, it's a big technology change, but we've been introducing intelligent speed assist. There's some good stuff on New York One, on CNN about that, and something we wanted to mention. In our eyes, sustainability is not just emissions, it's safety. And we are trying to spec our vehicles to be as safe and as sustainable as we can. There are lots of challenges to the EV. I'm happy to talk more about them. I'm not going to go through this whole list, but I'm going to share it with you. Suffice to say, this is a hard transformation. And, if we can do it in New York City and we can do it in an emergency services fleet in New York City, then you can do it anywhere. And that's really what we're trying to show, because there's no harder fleet operations in the world than what your tremendously committed and dedicated and skilled public servants are doing every day out there. And they have really embraced these technologies. First and foremost, as your city's fleet manager, my job is to make sure that your firemen and your police officers and your skilled trades have the right vehicles that work and achieve their purposes. But we're also trying to make them zero emission and making a lot of progress. And the last thing I want to share is if you happen to be available on May 11th, we have a public fleet show. We've been doing this for 34 years, DCAS in partnership with the New York City Parks Department. It's at the Unis Fair. It's a lot of fun. There's all the latest in safe and green vehicles. There's usually free food that the vendors give out. And we usually have announcements and educational stuff going on. So put that on your calendar and take a trip to Flushing, and you can see more about what we do. And with that, I just want to mention, of course, we partner far and wide across the country and the world to do this. No one fleet, even a big one and a well-known one like ours, can transform the vehicle industry, right? We need everybody pushing, every fleet we talk to, public and private, every government we talk to, every community board we talk to. We need everybody pushing the industry to move in this direction. A lot of progress is being made. The Super Bowl, we finally have electric vehicle ads, right? But I will tell you, having done this for 30 years, nothing is inevitable. An industry can move, and an industry can see its progress reversed too. And supply chain is very difficult right now. There are a lot of challenges in the electric vehicle industry. Still great buzz and great promise, but a lot of real day-to-day challenges. So we encourage you to keep pushing any way you can, and we're happy to work with you. With that, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Keith. You are absolutely so enthusiastic about it. So your enthusiasm is really feel good about everything you are doing, and I think we applaud that. So I'm going to go one person by one person for the questions, and very excited about the program. Dale.
Keith, thank you so much for for the detailed presentation. It's really encouraging news. I have a few questions on a few different topics.
Sure. Go ahead.
One is not specific to the electrification program, but it's about the fleet reduction program. You mentioned that the NYPD, and I guess that's all law enforcement, has about 9,000 vehicles. And do you have figures on the change in the fleet over the last few years? And also, have they been subject to the reduction standards that the mayor has put into place?
Yes, every agency has reduced their fleet without exception. And the police department has as well. So the police, if you want to see the sizes, and you could email me, we could try and get you answers to specific questions. But we have our own section of the Mayor's Management Report. So if you go into the Mayor's Management Report and just Google Mayor's Management Report, go into additional tables, there's a whole 11-page fleet section of the Mayor's Management Report. And we report on the fleet size for every single agency, including all the major agencies, right? The smaller agencies that have 2 to 20 cars are all tracked under my agency, DCAS, because we manage them. But the police department, fire, you can get all their fleet sizes there. But yes, the police department has been reducing their fleet, as has every agency.
So that report would have data like over the last few years.
20. If you got the time and the interest, you can go back 20. You can go back 20 years in the MMR.
Okay, that's fantastic, because it doesn't seem like the NYPD's fleet has been reduced. I mean, in our district, Midtown South has essentially turned 9th Avenue between 34th and 35th Street into they've commandeered it as a parking lot. There's 2 lanes, a travel lane and a turn lane, which are 24 hours parked with police vehicles, and they're not being used in constant rotation. They're just parked out there. And they've essentially commandeered 2 active travel lanes.
So Dale, we have a question about that. It's just late.
I understand. I just want to make you aware that the optics do not look great for fleet reduction on the NYPD side. Also, my question is about I definitely understand the challenge of electrifying the sanitation fleet. Do you have any leverage at DCAS over like the private carters? Like, is there a way to encourage them to electrify their fleets, or are they going to be, combustion for the duration?
Well, let me say that, and there's some thinking going on. I don't think we're ready to say anything publicly on that front, but let me say something to give you a sense of where policy might be what we might be thinking about. We have done some of the projects that we've led on in the city fleet. Things like, if you go back, diesel particulate filters, right? Which are those traps that, can really get most of the harmful pollution, not the carbon greenhouse stuff, but the air quality stuff out of trucks. We did that first in the city fleet. It became then federal law. Then we did it with the commercial vendors, and we required that. Side guards, we led and are still leading in the nation, frankly, to introduce truck side guards onto trucks in New York City and in the nation. If you go to London, Europe, truck side guards, and that's a rail between the front and back wheel, have been there for decades. You come to America, nobody's ever seen one. So, we led that with the city fleet. We then required that of commercial waste vendors. And now we're going to the next big stage, which I'm actually meeting with our contracting agencies tomorrow on, which is to go to city contracts, all city contracts like construction and fuel.
That's great.
So there is a model for taking sustainable fleet practice from that leads with the city fleet into other places. And of course, we've already legislated the school buses, right? So the answer is we're thinking about that.
That's great. That's so encouraging to hear.
Just 1 second, Dale. Keith, could you take down your presentation so we can
Of course.
just see everybody better? Okay, thank you so much. Dale, back to you.
Yeah. Next question. About the charging stations in our districts, are those I don't want to run down of where exactly, but they're mostly located within facilities or within yards?
Yeah, right now, I don't think I have any publicly available in CB4. They are all within, I think they're mostly actually in sanitation facilities and some other facilities. Actually, I'll try and just scan the list really quickly. But yeah, they're within our facilities, and that, there are a lot of efforts at DOT and elsewhere to do public charging. We are definitely part of that. But my primary customer is still the city fleet, right? And we have a huge percentage of the electric vehicles in New York City are in fact the city fleet. But yeah, it's mostly sanitation, also Department of Ed, Parks, Department of Ed and Parks. But sanitation's the biggest customer I have at 57th Street, actually mostly at 57th and 50th Street.
Got it.
And we're trying to do a lot of, Sanitation's been a really good partner. And, while, we have the technology challenge of the plow truck and that, we can't, we can't electrify what doesn't exist, right? But, we're in this process to electrify all the light duty at sanitation, all the 400 sedans are all becoming bolts. The 600 SUVs that are used in the storm response are all going to plug-in SUVs, mostly Outlanders. We just brought in a lot of pickups and vans. So we're going to try and electrify everything we can at sanitation while we push, MAC and others to find a way to solve this charging issue, the plowing issue.
That's
Great.
it.
And then I have a couple more. And then with the light towers, that's really great that you're rolling out are they solar, the light towers?
They're solar electric. Yeah, it's basically
solar electric,
completely solar powered, and it charges basically like these little banks of like 10 car batteries.
Are those already in use or planned?
No, there are about 110 that we're using now. Police and parks have a lot, but I think DOT, OEM, we have them all over, but police and parks probably have the most. Some NYCHA facilities, we have them. We love the technology. It's just the reality of any solar technology is, if you're doing like a special event and it's, you got clear view of the sun, it's perfect. But
Right.
sometimes, a lot of the NYCHA facilities need them. And unfortunately, they're just blocked by the buildings. So it's hard to
Right.
get in there.
They have limited application in that regard. But when you provide those to the agencies, do you provide like guidance on the disposition and staging of those towers? For instance, we have a lot of those light towers in pedestrian areas instead of in the roadbed.
Yeah, I mean, we can, you can always email me. We can always check in with any agency if you're seeing something. There are a lot. There are 28,000 assets. I'd be lying. Well, I'm tracking them all.
That's a lot.
I'd be lying if I told you that I, have the pulse of every one of them every night. But we follow up on things every day. So yeah, we do training. It's a company called Progress Solar Solutions, and we do training when they come in. But I have 80,000 people who are involved in operating full or part-time my fleet. So things happen, and if you see something, let us know. The 311 calls that come into the city on fleet all come to my office, and I assure you we follow up on everyone.
Oh, that's great to know. And then for my final question is about the batteries. Do you have are there specific challenges to like storage, disposal, and recycling of the electric batteries through the lifetime of your fleet?
Well, what's interesting, I mean, it's a real interesting area, and I'm sure you're aware of it, of what's going to be the end stage for all these batteries as we electrify, and how to recycle them, reuse them so they don't become one more landfill, nightmare. It doesn't tend to hit my operations where we are, to be honest, because when so if we have to replace a battery in maintenance, say it needs to be repaired or replaced, those are always recycled through the parts menu of the parts suppliers. They're always recycled. And then when we dispose of vehicles, we auction them and they get future life beyond us. So interestingly enough, we're very aware and we follow as a policy matter, the end stage debates about batteries. But right now, all of our we don't tend to be impacted by the issue directly, because in the maintenance and repair program, they're 100% recycled. So these core replacements, it's this whole administrative nightmare, but I assure you they're all recycled. And then we sell on public auction. So, we're selling some older Leafs right now that are 12, 13 years old. They're going to be bought by, private citizens or companies around the country and keep getting used. So I'm not impacted by that end stage issue directly yet, and I might never be, because we almost always, by law, have to auction. Although, yeah, it's a big issue. And there's some interesting new stuff about recycling of batteries, and there's actually some good press and some innovation about it in the last 2 weeks. If you Google, there's been some interesting press about the whole industry of recycling and reusing batteries.
Are you done?
Yeah, I appreciate your answers, and I have the way you are so thoroughly versed in this topic. I have confidence that you'll keep on top of that. So thank you.
Very good. Alan.
Thank you, Christy. And thank you, Keith. Marvelous, really great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
In addition to reducing the size of the fleet, is there an effort to evaluate the size of the models that you're ordering for particular agencies, as some of these vehicles are one-person vehicles?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely want to downsize, and that's part of the NYC Green Fleet, the Clean Fleet Plan, and one of the links that we sent you, that we have on the second page. You know, certainly one of the things we're doing is we're trying as much as possible to get the SUV fleet down. You know, SUVs were kind of a craze in the mid 90s. You know, I've been around that long doing fleet, so I know we are reducing the SUV fleet. You know, we've knocked it down. I'll wait till we publicize it, but we've knocked it down as part of Executive Order 41 under Mayor de Blasio. We've knocked it down more under Mayor Adams' initiative. We also are trying to downsize, even when it's not an SUV or sedan, to the crossovers. You know, the crossover is kind of a new vehicle modeling out there. And some crossovers are heavily weighted towards sedans. Some are heavily weighted toward SUVs. That's actually based on how the frame is designed. But like a GM Bolt, right? So, you know, a GM Bolt is technically not a sedan, right? But it's clearly not as dangerous. It's not as large. It's not as imposing as, you know, a Ford Escape, right? The Mach-E, you know, is technically a crossover. It's not an SUV, but it's not a sedan. So we're trying to lower as much as we can the size. We also want pickup trucks, and we've been for years trying to knock the, you know, F350s to 250s, 250s to 150s. We've done a lot of that in the city fleet. I will tell you one challenge that's out there, and it's part of a trend that's frankly unfortunate throughout North American vehicles. A lot of vehicle manufacturers are dropping sedan models, right? Ford and GM, it's a matter of public record. You don't have to listen to me, just Google it. They have knocked out a huge percentage of their sedan models as the car market in the US has focused on SUVs and pickups. You know, while we're trying to clean the fleet and get more sustainable, another trend has happened in the vehicle market over the last 25 years in the United States. Half of the sedans in the United States, this is not about government, this is about the whole country, have switched over to SUV and pickup. An average, there's about 35% emissions increase when you go from a sedan to an SUV or pickup. And that's all from the United States DOT. We've published newsletters and other things on it, but everything I'm telling you is published by the US DOT. So that's a big challenge. And one of the issues in policing, you know, most of our police cars are that Ford Escape Interceptor, which we buy the hybrid. There aren't many police sedan models left. Ford and GM announced, as a matter of public and general, they announced that they were discontinuing all the models. So, you know, we do the best we can within the industry that we have. The best we can is that Interceptor, and now we're trying to get the Mach-E, which is a crossover. So the Mach-E is clearly smaller. If you Google the Mach-E, M-A-C-H-E, that's the Ford Mustang electric. It's clearly a smaller, it's bigger than a sedan, but it's clearly a smaller footprint than the SUVs. And, you know, so we're trying to do as much as we can on downsizing. But I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that, you know, the vehicle market is a challenge, right? While we're trying to downsize, the vehicle market's, you know, got a huge priority on SUVs and pickups in this country.
Thank you, Keith. Love that. Love that Mustang.
It's a nice vehicle. If you haven't driven one, it is really a very nice vehicle, and you know, we've had good luck with it so far.
Charles.
Alan took one of my questions, which was reducing the size of the vehicle. So thank you, Alan, for that. And thank you so much for the presentation, Keith. I thought it was fantastic. So excited to hear that you guys are working on reducing the number of cars in the fleet. I know that de Blasio, I think it went up 20% during his time. So great to see that we're trying to move things back down, and great to hear that you're taking steps to reduce the size of some of these vehicles as best you can. I also wanted to say I'm thrilled to hear that speed governors are in the conversation. I would love to have speed governors on all vehicles in the United States of America, but if we can start with the New York City fleet, that'd be fantastic. We have speed governors on our e-bikes, so it'd be nice to get them on our SUVs too. And the love the innovation of the solar powered light tower. That's fantastic. Dale mentioned we have a lot of these light towers on 8th Avenue and our new expanded sidewalk space. I walk by during the daytime and the generators are running and the lights are on and it's making noise and spewing gasoline during the day. So man, it would be nice to electrify those. And then just one question that I do have is are bicycles under your purview at all? You know, with the e-bike revolution, is there e-cargo bikes? Could they be a part of the New York City fleet?
Yeah, I mean, we have some bikes that are bicycles that are used in the fleet. You know, the Parks Department, the Police Department definitely use bicycles, and I'm sure you've all seen them for enforcement during warm weather months. We've rolled out a few cargo bikes to see how they'll go. You know, there are challenges to a lot of what we do in bicycles. You know, we move a lot of heavy equipment, right? So thousands and thousands of city vehicles are trades vans, plumbers, electricians, carpenters, blacksmiths, you know, Park says blacksmiths, you know, who knew? And we move a lot of equipment, right? And so, you know, you have to find the right application. Certainly park enforcement patrol, rangers, and police bicycles in the warm weather months are the ones you're most familiar with, and we support that. We're looking at cargo bikes where we can apply them. We've done one in Flushing Meadow Park. We've done one for the health department. You do have weather, you know, you do have weather issues. You do have cold weather issues that are challenges. But certainly, you know, if any city, I mean, you know, it's one thing to try and push it as a central initiative. I will tell you, any agency comes to me and says, we need a bicycle for this or that, they get it, right? That's not an issue. It's just finding those applications that can be reliably done. And the truth is that we do a lot of hard, difficult, technical work. Think about the DOT street crews, right? And the construction crews, and everyone wants those DOT capital projects to move forward in these street designs. And well, we have to support that with heavy equipment, right? It's heavy equipment that does all that stuff.
That's great, thanks. And be sure you're including February as one of the warm weather months based on today.
Yeah, you know, suddenly.
So I have a few questions before we go to the public. One is, yeah, I'm glad you're trying to reduce the SUV. This is really so important. Is there any effort to use car sharing? I mean, you know, Zipcar, share cars between agency or between people within agencies?
Yes, actually, and there's a local law tied to car sharing. And don't mind if I turn away from you because I'm trying to remember what the number of it is. And now I'm not going to find it. But yeah, we actually have a car sharing. It's local law 41 of 2015.
Right.
We've been publicly reporting on it for years. So
how is it doing?
Well, two things we do. One, we do utilize Zipcar. We have a contract with Zipcar, public contract. I think it's one of their largest, if not their largest in the country. And, you know, one of the ways we've been doing fleet reductions across both administrations is, you know, if you don't need a full-time vehicle, but you need a vehicle once or twice a week or when you need it, you know, just use Zipcar. You know, my own staff, we run the fleet, we use Zipcar. You know, a lot of times in the fleet management world, people don't need transport, but they really don't need it all the time. But they just want to hold that car. I want to have that car. And I'm sure you all know, you know, if it ever did snow again in New York City, you'd see lots of cars, public and private, with snow would be sitting on them for weeks because they aren't really being used. So we are using Zipcar. Then we're doing something that's been really interesting. We share, it's at about 500-600 vehicles now. We share city vehicles as though they're Zipcars. And one aspect of that is my agency, DCAS, offers a citywide Bolt fleet, GM Bolt, the all-electric fleet, about 90 of them now, that are open to all agencies. And it's so any agency goes online, reserves the vehicle, and they're using an all-electric Bolt. Then we have sharing within agencies. So that sharing technology is what is part of what we call the Fleet Office of Real-Time Tracking. Another just fun thing that we do is we are the largest live tracker of vehicles in the United States. We track 28,000 vehicles plus live here in what we call the FORT, the Fleet Office of Real-Time Tracking. And that same tracking technology is also supporting our new technology for fleet sharing. And there's a lot more that we can do there and want to do there. So we definitely are doing both sides, the private car share and the fleet share. And there's a lot of additional opportunity with that.
That's great. So yeah, I remember that. As far as safety measured, I mean, you know, what is concerning about what I read about the electric cars is they are much heavier than normal cars. So between the SUV, which are heavier than normal cars, and the electric cars, it looks like we are going to get vehicles which are much heavier than what was 10 years ago, let's put it this way, right? And I applaud your you know, the efforts of putting a speed controller, but what about putting pedestrian detection? I mean, you know, the technology does exist, right, on supposedly the all automated cars, but what about taking that feature and trying to integrate that in the fleet so that it counterbalance essentially the fact that all the cars are going to be higher, you know, heavier?
Yeah, so, and that's a real issue. So first, I'm going to just say about the trade-offs. You know, electric vehicles are not a panacea. There are issues, right? There are issues about getting the lithium and the cobalt, and I won't go through, I'm sure you all know them, right? There are issues about there being heavier vehicles. There are issues, of course, about charging, about long stage battery, right? So, and there are, on the safety side, and this is something we've been doing a lot of work on, there are both opportunities and problems. The problem is clearly weight, right? But there are other opportunities. You know, we've been pushing high vision trucks, right? So if you know a conventional truck, and I show you a picture, but the standard truck in America, the engine and transmission is in front of the driver. The driver cannot see the ground for 25 to 30 feet. And at Parks and at DCAS, we've lived tragedies that are really horrible on this, right? And people wonder, how could a city driver hurt this person or hit this person? And I try and explain, they're not, these people wouldn't do this in a million years. They couldn't see them. Right? We put them they're in a truck. You can't see the ground for 25 feet. They're not, these people didn't wake up today to do these things. So electric vehicles are a great opportunity for high vision trucks because there is no engine or transmission. You can redesign, you can put the batteries on the undercarriage. So on high vision, tremendous opportunity. On intelligent speed assist, tremendous opportunity. You know, the first set of vehicles we did intelligent speed assist with were GM Bolts, right? So Mayor Adams drove one of them, you know, with us. And so we're trying to combine the all electric with the speed technology, the all electric with the high vision. And yes, there is that trade-off on battery weight. You know, hopefully batteries will get lighter. There's some news from Ford today about looking to do new chemistry in the batteries for less expensive and lighter batteries. And that's one of the, you know, hopeful aspects. In terms of pedestrian alert, so we have something, it's all public record, called the Safely Transition Plan. It's part of our Vision Zero plan. And we've been speccing safety into everything we're doing. So automatic braking, pedestrian alert, and I don't want to. We're doing something on sound alerts now. So we are testing. You know, MTA vehicles do have the sound alerts. I don't know if you like them or not. So well, tell me that. You know, send me something about what you're.
No, we don't. We are not excited about that. But what about the pedestrian detection?
Is that because of the noise?
Yeah, we have already so much noise. I mean, and then what it says to the pedestrian, get out of the way. Instead
we'll be politer, but you know, it's the same thing. It's the trade-offs, right? You know.
But what about the pedestrian detection?
Yeah,
which,
so
you know, all the new companies, you know, and the new Tesla, etc. Everybody says we are doing it. So why don't we take that feature and try to put it into our car?
We are. So that is part of the Safely Transition Plan. We are doing the interior driver alert. So the driver's getting, you know, alerts for objects and pedestrians. So that's
great.
And so if you, I'm happy to send it to you, but even if you just Google Safely Transition Plan, you know, we've been doing this with the United States Department of Transportation Volpe Center. We're on our 4th SFTP report, and that's all public record what we're doing.
I'd love to see Eric Adams and you having a press conference on that, so we become aware of it, you know?
Sure. I think we're going to talk a little bit more about safety, and we have some interesting stuff, but don't get upset with us. We are going to test some of those external pedestrians.
Yes, I know. Don't.
But it's no different. It's the trade-off, right? We know I don't want noise out there either, but it's that how do you balance making sure that somebody knows a truck is there, and you know, we get it.
So finally, the discussion about the chargers, you know, it's we are very concerned about putting chargers at the curb, and because in our district, this is a very intense pedestrian environment, right? So you mentioned we are interested to put curbside fast chargers on the curb, and you know, explain to me why this is a good idea, because it seems that it's a pretty big, it's like putting a gas station at the curb, right?
Well, you know, you have cars. First off, in anything that we do, you know, the curb is everywhere in the city. So you think about the best placements for them. We have a lot of municipal facilities that have a lot of city vehicles already surrounding them, where, you know, you think about sanitation garages and police precincts, where if you had curbside, you know, there are already police vehicles and sanitation vehicles there. If you have the ability to charge them, that helps us with electrification of those vehicles. And then, you know, the issue becomes you have these vehicles that are parked, right? And they're sitting overnight, you know, they're in my neighborhood, they're in every neighborhood. If we can charge them, and that's what the curbside idea is, then you're giving New Yorkers the capacity to make those vehicles electric. Otherwise, you know, how viably can you electrify those vehicles? Right?
They can go to a gas station like they used to do that, right?
If you have, well, you know, there aren't that many gas stations in New York City, and you
no, but I mean, there are enough. There are enough with all the everybody. There are enough for all the cars right now, right?
Well, but if you want to plot a path to growth, you would need a large number of not just gas stations, but fast chargers, right? Because the most electric vehicles are still, you know, what we call slow charge. They're still overnight charged. And so you're not going to go to a gas station for 7 to 8 hours, you know, so.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is that we need to really move to the fast chargers and to the gas station model, because using the curb is there for the pedestrians, not for the cars, right? So I think when you are describing the idea of a police station and the problems we really have right now, the idea that all those cars are going to have a charger is completely overwhelming and completely scary. So I think
that wouldn't be the vision. That it's not that every police, if your vision is with fast charging, then the whole idea is you would have fast charging availability, but not every police car would have a charger. That isn't.
No, the problem is that I don't think we can afford in this district to have any fast charger on the sidewalks. Yeah. And so the question is, what is the plan, for example, for a precinct to say, okay, guys, this is where you go, just like today, where do they go to fill their tank? That's the question.
Oh, they go to we have gas stations. We operate.
Right. So what we'll need is the same thing. We'll need gas station where they go and fill their tank, right?
Yeah, and that's what we're doing.
Right. So I mean, you know, to me, it's very scary to think about chargers on the sidewalk along where we have, you know, precinct, and just because our precinct, we happen to be in a very high density environment and a very high density of people and walking, etc. So I hope that your investments are more into fast chargers and less in level 2 chargers.
I think that's fair.
Okay. let's open it to the public. Janine, can you bring anybody has their hand raised? Yeah.
Yeah, so Leslie Bogosi and Murphy is gonna come over.
Sure. I don't see Leslie in. Oh, okay, in the attendees, right? Right. Where is she? Oh, here's Leslie. Hey, Leslie, how are you?
Hi, Transportation Committee. Thank you, Christine. So, Mr. Kerman, just so you know, I'm also on Community Board 4. I'm the co-chair of Waterfront Parks and Environment. So a lot of the chunk of that is what you're talking about. And we're talking a lot about electric chargers, mostly for private vehicles and what we can do to boost that in our district. But I do have to say, your presentation was probably one of the best presentations I have ever seen from a city agency official. And I think we are in great hands because you look like you're the perfect person for the perfect job. And I do want to say, I did see your NY1 about the intelligent speed assistance when you rolled it out, or when you were, I guess, demonstrating it. And I thought that was fantastic technology that hopefully can be utilized on a wider scale. I did have a few questions though. How do you decide, as you're rolling out the e-vehicles for all the agencies, how do you decide, like for the police or the DSNY, what district is, like where it's going?
So agencies do that. So DCAS doesn't assign vehicles within an agency, right? So, you know, we buy your vehicles, we help repair and service them, but, you know, we don't operate your agency, right? So when you talk about the assignment of vehicles, that's really the operation of the agency, right? Who's getting what vehicles to do what on any given day is an operational responsibility. So that's really done by an agency.
So you're more the allotment.
We are absolutely the allotment, the fleet size, the buying, the maintaining, the administering. I manage for the DCAS what we call client fleets, which are the fleets that are smaller, you know, agencies like HBD or OEM or labor relations or OMB, we have small fleets. We are a little bit more involved in those assignments, but even for those vehicles, we don't tend to be the assigner. Assignment of vehicles is an operational function. I don't tell you what inspectors to send out today and where.
Gotcha.
That's your agency's job. I make sure you have the resources to do.
Gotcha, because I haven't seen many e-police cars in our district. Though I know at least Midtown North, which is a precinct, has what you were talking about, like a little back garage. It actually has a little gas station behind the precinct where it would be, you would think you can put a charger. So I was wondering how, because we haven't seen them in our district and we are a very heavily trafficked district. But my next question was, talking with parks formally and informally, it's funny that this is coming up right now on transportation, because I was talking to parks and they were actually not complaining, but saying, we're getting e-vehicles, we have nowhere to charge them. And we don't know what to do. I know their charger just went to Chelsea Park, a level 2. So how do you, I guess my first question was about the vehicles. My second question was about the allotment of chargers. How do you identify spaces? And maybe I want to be district specific because it's selfishly our district here, but how do you do that?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are again about 20 chargers in the district, in the community board that we checked on. I work with parks all the time, and I've been involved with the Parks Department since I was 4 years old. So I can assure you, we're rolling out charging with the Parks Department. It is true, it's a challenge. Vehicles can sometimes show up quicker than chargers, right? Charging is infrastructure, and one of the things we try to do is have the charging in place first. But sometimes you get an opportunity to buy a set of vehicles, and the vehicle market is a little difficult now, right? So we don't give up. It's a tough vehicle market right now. There are a lot of supply chain issues. So if I get an opportunity to go get 50, 60 electric vehicles, I don't say, well, I get them. And then, but we are rolling out a lot of charging with agencies. I think Parks actually has more electric charging than anyone. We're doing some of the things, we just announced the expansion of our solar carports, 71. think Parks is getting about 25 of those. And we are installing fast charging at Parks and other agencies, 200 fast chargers a year. And by the way, going to the previous discussion, we're installing fast charging at police precincts. And so, you know, we expect to do another 500 chargers this year. And so we are definitely investing in chargers. Anyone at Parks who is concerned about where to charge, have them call me. They'll already know me, I assure you.
I will.
And,
I'll also get our police precincts to call you so we get our chargers here. But yes,
Yeah.
that's great.
I'm looking at the list right now, and I'm going to try and do some really quick adding for you all. But 12. I'm looking at a quick list. Don't quote me, but we have about 35 fast chargers already operating at the police department that DCAS has installed.
Wow.
So we are doing what you described. And again, we are going to do 200 fast chargers a year for the next 7 years.
That is great.
To do. So
And
we are making that investment.
I have to agree with Christine as far as the level 2 charging. It seems like you're obviously very well versed in this, but to put level 2 chargers anywhere on curbside or really anywhere except like a mall or an apartment building complex, you know, I understand there's a cost, right? There's cost benefit here, but maybe not what Christine said, but I think level 3s on curbside would be much more attractive because it's kind of like plug in and go. It's quick. The turnover is very quick, right, and it's accessible. So that is very welcome. And I would love to stress that would be great, the level 3s and not the level 2s. And my last thing was, thank you for mentioning about the battery being lighter as technology continues as we go forward, because we're only really in the first few, you know, iterations. So as we, you know, move forward with technology and innovation, that's going to get lighter. There's going to be different, I guess, improvements. And I will see you May 11th because I will go to the
Excellent.
The public fleet show.
It's the fleet show, so please do. It's a lot of fun, and the rain date is the Friday. But yeah, you know, if you want, reach out. We'll make sure you get any information about it. But it's all out there in the public sphere, and it's a lot of fun. And you're absolutely right. I mean, look, the electric vehicle thing. Everyone wants everything to be zero emission tomorrow, right? And no more than me. And that's not. But the truth is, the electric vehicle, you know, I don't want to call it a movement, but the progress in electric vehicles has been stunning. And it's really just been in the last 5, 6, 7 years. There's an enormous amount of investment. I have a unit that meets with everybody in the electric vehicle and electric charging space. There are so many companies and so much money going into this now. And so it really is exciting. And it's all recent. It's all recent.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's all I had. Thank you. I mean, listen, you were amazing. We're in great hands. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I try.
Thanks, Leslie. Anybody else? Janine?
Yeah, Melody Bryant. She's coming over now.
Okay. Hi, Melody. You are on mute.
Yes, unaccustomed. So I was wondering, thank you for your presentation. I was wondering if there's been any consideration about reducing the size of fire trucks like they have in Europe. Like the ones we have here are so enormous. And I'm not sure that that's necessary. Is there any plan about that?
Well, I can tell you that, I mean, the specifications for the fire trucks are done by the fire department, right? So that, you know, our experts on fighting fires are at the engineering and design side of fire, and we take their lead on what they require. I will tell you that fire is doing some interesting work. We aren't ready to talk about it, to try and electrify the fire trucks and look at the design from the electrification standpoint. So we are looking at that. There are a few electric pumpers that are out there in the country. One being tested in California, one being tested in Madison, Wisconsin. And so we are looking at the design level in terms of supporting electrification. In terms of the specifications, though, that we really do take the lead from the fire department. You know, we need to get them the fire equipment that they feel they need to do their job.
Okay, so thank you. That's good to know. So basically, I was also wondering about like where in the process are the models of various vehicles chosen. So if you're speaking to the police department, they tell you what they need, and when you speak to the fire department, they tell you what they need. And is that how it works?
Yeah, for general vehicles, if you're general sedan, SUV, pickup, van, minivan, crossover, DCAS does all that speccing, right? So our agency buys all vehicles, right? We are the buyer and bidder of all vehicles, period, without exception. When you get to the general models, we do the specifications. But when you get to the specialized models, right, and certainly the police specialized, the fire specialized for sure, the sanitation specialized, even parks, DOT does the street paving. They're the only agency, right? They know the needs and specifications for those equipment. DEP does the sewer work. That is a very specialized, those sewer trucks are extraordinarily specified. Right. So on the general models, DCAS does the specs and the buying. On the specific, more technical, specialized models, the agencies do the specifications. They send them to us. My office reviews them. But certainly, and we look at safety, we look at sustainability, we'll look at other items and see if there's anything there that sparks our interest or concern. But we will take the lead from an agency in terms of their specialty and technical needs, right? That I'm not going to tell the foresters of the Parks Department what they need in a bucket truck. They need to tell me.
Okay, and last question: has there been any talk about chargers for fire department vehicles in the fire stations or EMS, anything like that?
Yeah, we're working with fire on charging along with every agency.
Like in their stations or on street or?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see if I can go to that list. But yeah, we are definitely talking. I know we're working on a project over at MetroTech with fire right now on charging. And yeah, we want to install charging for every agency everywhere. And we're going to do that for the fire department as well. I mean, admittingly, fire equipment, a lot, especially the specialized side, when you talk about pumpers, ladders, there is not, the electric is very, very nascent, right? It's very early. I don't even think there's a ladder truck in the world that's electric. There are engines. It's very early. You can Google it. There are some very early engine models. So my guess is, and according to our executive order and plan, the specialized equipment of fire is going to be in the later stage. There's no question about that.
All right. Thank you very much.
You bet.
All right. So if there is no one, I don't see anyone else, I'd like to wrap up.
Can I, Jenny, Christine, can I circle back to one question real quick?
Sure.
So Keith, I checked that report, the fleet report from the mayor's big report, and the reduction year over year, I just looked at the police vehicles, was about like 0.5%. Is that the benchmark?
For the policing fleet, the reduction?
Yeah. It went down from like 9,300 and change to 9,200 and change.
Yeah, but if you go back a few years, it's more substantial than that.
Okay, and then there weren't any projections for 23 and 24. It was blank.
We do projections citywide. I don't believe we project per agency. So I think that's correct.
All right.
Partly, there are projects and needs that can come up. There are new initiatives that can come up. The projections are only as good as we know what might be asked of city agencies in any given period. But if you go back MMRs, the police decrease a little bit more substantial than you're stating.
Well, I was just reading off the report from last year to the year.
Yeah, because that will just have the last 2 years.
Right.
Right. So yeah, so if you go back a little bit, it's a little bit more substantial there.
Okay.
And all those MMRs are available. You just go to the previous years on the
So
bottom.
yeah, so I'd like us to write a letter to DCAS to applaud extensively what Keith is doing, and really support what he's doing and all the aspects of the program. I think this is very exciting to see what you are doing and what is underway. And we really support everything you are doing. I would add that we would want to emphasize that the level 3 chargers are clearly what we prefer, and level 3 chargers not on public property, I don't mean public, not on sidewalk would be our preference. And if there is ever a sighting of one of those, on the sidewalk in our district, we would like to be consulted first, so that we can select and we can help select where they should be in a smart way. And certainly we don't envision, large concentration of street curbside chargers around police precinct, because right now we already are a little bit overwhelmed with the cars and the vehicles. The second thing is, like, as much as we can reduce the SUV. I mean, we heard what you said about the market. I don't know whether going international would help. Bloomberg went international for the taxis. Maybe going international would be a signal, and maybe that would be something to do. And finally, as far as safety, emphasizing our, we really appreciate the speed, but also would like to see more pedestrian detection as soon as possible, right? And I know you are doing all of that, so we just want to emphasize the things that we care the most about. Sure. But we feel very comfortable that you have your eyes on the ball and everything is going in the right direction. So that would be my suggestion for a recommendation. Am I missing anything there?
No, we have notes
the reduction in number
of
reduction, right.
Reaching out, leverage over
right.
contractors, charging stations, questions about the battery end stage, speed controllers, size of vehicles, possible expansion or expansion of bike, car sharing, pedestrian detection, high vision, the use of the acquisition of high vision trucks, and the charging issues.
One minor thing, I would also suggest that we get charging stations at EMS stations, because ambulances at this point, according to his report, can be charged. Fire trucks are a different matter at this point.
Yeah. So can I get a motion on that?
I make the motion.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Anyone opposed? No one. Well, Keith, I mean, thank you so very much. This is an amazing presentation, but it's probably the expression of your work, all of your work, which is so amazing. And the fact that you have all of that, I mean, it's very exciting. I can't tell you enough how exciting it is to have a presentation like that.
Well, thank you very much for inviting us. Yeah, DCAS has really been pushing that. There are a lot of people here who care very deeply about moving the sustainable and safe aspects and efficient aspects of fleet. And yeah, we appreciate, like I said, we alone cannot move this industry. Everyone pushing from every place can. And, so I've heard all your comments very clearly, and we'll take them back. Of course, we would never do anything on a curb without our partners at DOT anyway, since that DCAS can't just show up and do that stuff anyway. We partner with DOT in anything we would do publicly. But yeah, really, it was great to be able to talk to all of you. And if you have further questions, and
we will,
feel free to reach out, and we'll.
And please make sure that the district office gets the invite to that fleet event, so we can all geek out on the fleet.
Yeah. So I did send my whole presentation that has that invite.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, great.
But if anyone reaches out to K Kerman, KKERMAN at dcas.nyc.gov. We will absolutely send that to you as well. But yeah, it would be great. It'd be great to see you. It's always a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Super. Thank you so much, Keith, and all your team for your work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Have a great night.
You too.
Christine, sorry, before we move on, can I just get Alice's vote on that letter, on that motion?
Yes,
Yes,
I was
all right.
too slow to my hand raise motion.
No problem. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, now we're on to the SAPO.
Yes, we are. Thank you, everyone. You know, coming to those meetings is like you have to learn something before you present something. So, SAPO application for muddy Paws, West 54th Street. Who is here and who is presenting?
Hi, so my name is Rachel. I'm the founding executive director for Muddy Paws Rescue. We have also Juliet here. She's our donor relations and events manager. And then we also have Robert Ash, who's with Clearview Productions. They're going to be helping us hopefully with the event. So I was going to kick it off, and you're right. I definitely learned a lot just now. I think we're going to have to look into electric adoption vehicles for
That's
our,
right.
our events. I'm just going to screen share it here. We've got our presentation, and I'm just going to do it as a PDF here, so I don't want to mess up the the rest. Okay.
Oh, dogs. That's it. We're sold. That's it.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to go home. All right. So we are, if you don't know who we are Muddy Paws Rescue. We are a foster-based dog rescue. We place over 1,000 dogs every year into adoptable homes. The dogs all live in foster care. So our location is not a shelter, but we did open the location in October of 21. We're on 9th Avenue. We're between 54th and 55th. We're right next to Chase Bank. And we have loved being in the Hell's Kitchen area. It's been such a great location for us. So many dogs, so many dog owners, so many dog lovers. And it's just been a really great kind of community for us to have settled. Prior to that, we kind of operated out of my garage, which was in Astoria at the time. So having the space has been a big step for us. So we were founded by me in 2016. And we've placed over 6,000 dogs at this point, for actually, I think over 7,000. I think we just hit probably 7,000. And our space is not, so like I said, not a shelter, but we hold our adoption meetings there for the dogs who need a quieter space. We also hold our mobile adoption events on the weekends at Petco, PetSmart, other locations. But we've grown a lot over the last 7 years. And we are here tonight because we're looking to hopefully put on what we would like to call a block party. And we'll get to that in a minute. But I was just going to share a little bit more about us and our location first, and then I am going to pass it off actually to Juliet. So our mission at Muddy Paws Rescue is not just to save canine lives, but also to build and support a thriving community of dog-loving humans. So we are about the pups and the people, and we do this through learning and education, life-saving, and continuous innovation. And we always, this is I'm blanking on his name, but Juliet could tell you. This is a dog from, I think from New York Animal Care Centers, but recently adopted. And so our core values are, we are positive, we are responsive, welcoming, and supportive. So we really do try to be here for our people, whether that's our adopters, our fosters, our volunteers, our donors, anybody who interacts with us along the way. And on to the event. So, oh, and this is Sarah. This is the dog, Sarah. She has 3 legs. I don't know if you can notice that there. But I'm going to actually pass this off to Juliet to just tell us more about the event itself that we are applying for the permit for on Saturday, May 13th. So luckily it doesn't conflict with the Fleet Expo thing. But Juliet, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for having us. We're very excited to be here. And as Rachel said, we really love the Hell's Kitchen community. So this event is for everyone, but it will be a very dog curated, pet friendly street fair. So again, our headquarters has just started to feel like home since moving in over a year ago at this point. So we're hoping to really engage with the community and put on an amazing event that will ultimately save lives. So we're really excited to do that with your support, of course. So we, Rachel, you can go on to the next slide. We're sort of envisioning an adoption event that will be for our dogs, as well as New York City animal care centers, for them to bring dogs and cats. And then we also intend to bring a cat-focused organization that we believe aligns with our work. So it will be a really wonderful event to save those lives and adopt your new best friend. Of course, it will be free admission. We want as many people to come out as possible and learn about why animal welfare is so important to our community. You can bring your dog, of course, and get a pet portrait done, or you can bring a photo of your cat, and we'll have artists there who can draw those pictures. We intend to invite our local businesses and vendors to sort of, of course, have their own product or food and drink, and just making it really family friendly and pet focused, of course. And we also want to have, local veterinarians there and trainers, and sort of really, again, being able to talk to people to really support their pet ownership and questions that they might have. And again, big focus here on just engaging in our community and making it a really wonderful event. We intend to have family-friendly games, picture giant Connect 4 and Jenga and fun activities. And again, all things that we really think will create an incredible event that will ultimately help us and the local city shelter save more lives. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And of course, we have Rob here as well to answer any logistics. Yeah.
Well, so what are the hours?
So the permit was filed for 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. However, that was before we pinpointed the public hours. So we are hoping to do it from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. We do expect the road to be closed slightly before 10 a.m. So that, of course, the vendors can set up safely and everything. And then we expect to open the roads as soon as possible. As soon as the roads are, ready for DSNY standards, and everything is all cleaned up and looking good and ready to go. So again, hopefully between 7 and 7:30.
Is there going to be any music?
We have not decided on music yet. We ultimately don't want to scare any of the animals. So if there is music, it will be low level, and just nothing that would give anyone a headache.
Right, nor any loudspeaker or things like that, right?
The dogs probably would not like that too
Would
much.
not like that. Okay.
I've actually been at street fairs in the past, and we always request to not be near the music because it's
And then, okay, that's all from me, Charles.
Thank you for your presentation. I live on the block on 54th between 9th and 10th, and walk by your headquarters all the time. I think it sounds like you guys are a great organization. I will definitely be there playing Connect 4 with my children and crossing my fingers that they don't make me adopt an animal. But yeah, it sounds like a fantastic event. Just to give some context about our block is mostly placard parking for police officers and junkie cars that are dumped there for months.
This is between 9 and 10, Charles.
Correct, where I live.
Yes.
Yeah. And so our block has, yes, Christine, there's also a lot of police vehicles on the other block.
Oh, okay.
Our block is a lot of placard private vehicles that are dumped there for months on end because they have a business card that says NYPD on the dashboard. So my dream would be for you guys to get all those cars removed for your event and maybe have a street sweeper come by the block for the first time ever to clean up the whole street for your party. So I don't know if your permit could involve removing all of the parked vehicles on the block, but that would be the first time that they were moved and cleaning could properly happen. So that would be fantastic. The second thing that I just wanted to flag is that there is the 54th Street Auto Center, who have giant vehicles, and their vehicles like to try to chop down the trees in front of my building. So they have not traditionally been, I don't want to speak ill of them, but they have giant vehicles. And I assume that they would be open. I think they're open every single day. I just want to make sure they're not running over any pups, and we have some mitigation strategy and make sure that they're cooperative for the event. So that's all.
I appreciate you bringing that to our attention, and we have walked up and down 54th to let the businesses aware and talk to them and give them my information. But I'm going to pass this over to Rob really quickly, since he has more information on the plan for moving the cars during that morning and exactly how they're going about that day.
Hi, good evening. Hi, good evening, everyone. Robert Ash with Clearview Productions. I came across Paws several years ago when they were first starting up, and they were tabling at the more traditional street fairs that you guys might be familiar with, that I managed throughout Board 4. And proudly actually became what Muddy Paws refers to as a foster fail 5 years ago. And today I'm celebrating my adoption's 5th birthday. In regards to NYPD clearing the block, my team will be out posting no parking signs in conjunction with the PD the Wednesday prior to the event. And NYPD should be moving all vehicles that aren't gone, or NYPD relocating. They're not impounded, they're just relocated traditionally around the corner. So hopefully that will get some of those cars off of there. As Juliet mentioned, we did go into all the businesses on the street, as well as the doorman buildings. And yes, the 54th Street garage there, which I understand is like a AAA service. They kind of indicated that the bulk of their business is actually in the morning. So hopefully we won't be impacting it too much. I do think there will come a point in the day where, unfortunately, will come a point in the morning when, unfortunately, they cannot get their vehicles in or out. In regards to cleanup and getting the streets swept, for the traditionally, Department of Sanitation does not have a room come through a small event like that. Rest assured, I will have half a dozen cleanup people there hand sweeping the street. So it'll definitely probably be the cleanest you've seen that block in a very long time.
That's great. I mean, there's literally a dead rat underneath the vehicle right now. And also just to give you some context, I think this is great. I really hope that you can get all the vehicles removed. We had a school bus that was parked illegally on our block for 18 months. So that is sort of the situation we're dealing with. Like, because of the auto center, people assume that these abandoned vehicles belong to them. And because people know that cops park on the block, there's grace given and the cops don't want to tow anyone, is my take on it. So definitely, I don't know if you're working with Detective Dugan and Community Affairs or whoever you're working with at Midtown North, like, it's going to take some work to get some of these vehicles to move, because sometimes they never move. But I will be overjoyed if you succeed, or even if you get 90% of them, that'll be a big win, particularly if you clean underneath them. So thank you.
Okay, so David, Warren.
Hi, I think it's great and fantastic what you're doing. And I'm looking to possibly adopt a dog. I haven't figured that out. I'm just wondering, will you be able to maybe a couple of days in advance send to the community board what pets will be available and what charges you will charge if we do decide to adopt a pet? I mean, will there be pictures or a little biography of the
David, you want a private consultation, right? That's what you're saying.
No.
You have to go to the event.
I love that question. I'm saying prior to the event, like a couple of days before.
Well, you walk up to 54th Street. I'm just kidding.
Right, I understand, but I mean, if you see a specific dog, you're looking for, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
But to that end, we can assuming the permit is granted, CB4 can definitely help out with communications, with getting the word out to our list.
Yeah, definitely. We could do that. And then are you envisioning, you may want to call the K9 unit from NYPD, because if you do that, then the K9 unit is going to talk to the precinct.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
Right?
we had.
And the K9 unit is great. They love their dogs, you know, they
Yes.
bring their dogs, etc. So that they may help you more than anything else, taking care of everything. So that's just a thought.
I love that idea. Yes.
Right. Well, that sounds very good. I'm going to bring my husband, and I'm very concerned that we're going to leave with a pet.
Well, just sort of answer David's question, I can just say that if anybody is interested in adopting that day or any other day, the best thing to do is go on our website. It's muddipawsrescue.org. You can register to adopt. It's a general registration form, and then it's good for a year. So you can kind of stick with us and see, then you're ready when the right dog comes along.
It's awesome. It's awesome. We are very excited.
That go for fostering as well?
For fostering, yes. Fostering is you register to foster, and then the foster team will be in touch with you about finding the right dog for you.
And then you make the mistake that I do and you keep that foster. It's a wonderful, wonderful mistake.
Well, that sounds all wonderful. Anybody has any concern? We don't have any concern. We are overjoyed with the idea. And indeed, welcome again to our community. Do we have a resolution to approve here?
Yeah, we would support the application with the caveats about music and, express our concerns about street clearing and cooperation of all the commercial residents of the block.
I do see one hand from the public, Christine.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm going to bring over Steve Belita.
Oh, Steve Belita. Sure, Steve. I was not, thank you for telling me that. Hello, Steve.
Start my video.
Yeah.
Here I am. Hi, Christine. Hi, everybody. Hey. David. Good to see you, Mr. Warren. They're coming to, they've already spoken with my co-chair, Katie.
Right.
They're coming to our meeting. They're getting our full approval that we really want to push this and help them any way we can. I'm hoping you have a French poodle for Christine, if possible. There's a police precinct meeting on Tuesday. I'll send you out that information. You may want to come to that and talk to them. We're also, at most of our block associate meetings, we usually vote to put all the beat up old cars on 54th Street. So maybe we can do that at a later date. And just to answer Charles, when you say those cars, that bus was there, we had an issue with that on 50th Street and 51st Street. And if you let me know about that, and at our block association, we've gone and spoken to Deputy Inspector O'Connell, and we've had those cars removed. We had one with a barbecue grill on top that was there for about 6 weeks. And I know exactly how you feel. We can bring that up at the police precinct meeting if you can give us like a license plate and stuff like that, and we'll work with you on that to get those out of there. It's a lousy deal when they're left there like that.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. I went to the Midtown North Community Council multiple times about the bus and talked to Detective Dugan, and for whatever reason, it took 18 months to remove a abandoned school bus. But thank you. I appreciate that. And,
sometimes we do a little better with the block association speaking out for it. I just maybe that would help.
Yeah, it makes sense. And also, I've also talked to Detective Dugan and to sanitation about trying to get some sort of regular street cleaning on the block. Like, could they just move the cars once a month and get street cleaning so we don't have decaying rats underneath our vehicles?
I'm going to make a note of that as well and just speak to that at next week's police precinct meeting.
We can't just rely on Katie Savage and her crew to clean up the block.
No, but I was going to suggest we can also get the Litter Legion with Katie, bring that up.
We did go on our block recently. I volunteered with Katie and we did get to clean up my block. I was happy about that.
Appreciate all that help.
Thank you, Steve.
But we'll get the Litter Legion hopefully out there to help clean up that street too. And just bring, let's talk about this all at the meeting, Juliet, but just to let you know, HK 4954 Block Alliance, we support this 100%. So thank you.
Thank you
Beautiful. So if Steve supports it, that's it. That's all you need. Okay, do we have a resolution here? Somebody want to make a resolution or a motion?
I'll make the motion. Is
Okay,
there a second?
come on, guys, it's an easy one.
Second, yeah.
Yes,
Second it.
okay. All in favor? Yes. Opposed? No one. We're present, non-eligible.
Any
Anybody-
dogs on the committee would have to be.
Anybody, any dog, right? Exactly. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. We are just, this is very, very sweet, and we look forward to it.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Come see
Thanks
you.
much.
So the next item is a presentation by Flixbus/Eastern Coach, asking for an intercity bus stop permit at West 31st Street and between 8 and 9.
Yes, hello, and thanks for having us today, Transportation Committee. My name is Pierre,
Sure.
and I'm the president of Flixbus in the US. I'm super excited to be here today with my two colleagues, Dan and Andrew, and our partner, Eastern, who's applying for a curbside permit, as you just mentioned, on the northwest corner of 31st Street and 8th Avenue. So I'm actually doubly excited to be here because Chelsea in Midtown is also the home of Flixbus in the US. So our office is on the same very block that we're discussing right now. And many of us from the Flix team work on that very sidewalk when heading to the office. We understand that while we all share the same vision for a less congested New York, intercity bus is not always the top of your priorities because your main stakeholder is the people living in Chelsea and in the district, and your focus is really their quality of life. Yet, this district also happens to be this giant gateway to this great city for millions of people coming to New York from across the country and the world, and it kind of makes you the gatekeeper. So as you try to balance these two important responsibilities, I just want to present Flixbus, explain why we believe we can be a good partner, neighbor, and friend in your important mission. And maybe after this presentation, bus is not your favorite mean of transportation, but I hope that we have successfully made the case that Flix is the best bus for this district and this city.
By the way, everybody loves the bus, so you don't have to.
That's good to hear. Yeah. Because I saw so much love for the dog, so I hope that coming after dog is really hard.
Well, your buses have to be a little smaller. Go ahead.
Thank you. So if we move to this is us basically. Maybe just I don't want to eschew the fact that we're a business, and I mean our mission is to make money, but we are also mission driven, and Flix is a tech company. While you can see the bus, and they've become a common sight across the neighborhood and across hundreds of cities in the US. We don't own any of the bus, nor do we operate any of the buses. Our buses are operated by partners, and looking forward to tell you more about it in a few seconds. This model basically creates a huge efficiency because someone running a bus is better at running a bus when they just run a bus. And Flix, as a tech company, is really better at building a network, bringing all those moving pieces together. And this is really the recipe of our success, is that we create efficiency. And when your mission is to allow for everyone to travel and to basically at Flix, we believe that traveling is a right and that there are still too many people who don't have that opportunity. If you create efficiency, you reduce the cost of traveling, you allow more people to travel, you also help take cars out of the road. And this is the other core of our mission. Besides helping more people to travel, we want to make travel in general more clean. And of course, create an amazing experience for all our passengers, but also our other stakeholders. So if we go to the next slide, you can see our network globally. Flix, today, it's a big birthday, and this is why we came asking for this little birthday gift. We are celebrating our we are celebrating our 10-year anniversary. It's just 10 years since the first Flixbus got on the road. Today, you have partners running Flixbuses in 39 countries. in more than 2,000 buses across those 39 countries and more than 400,000 connections. 300 million trips were taken on Flix since we launched. And beside the great brand and the strong technology that supports this whole network and binds everything together, what's really at the core of this success is the fact that we are good partners. We are good partners to our partners who run those buses, and we're also good partners to the thousands of communities that we serve, and we hope that we will be a good partner to you. If you go to the next slide, you can see our US network. We just launched about 5 years ago. I've been with the company now 8 years, so in the US 5 years, and we started just with 2 cities, and today we are in a bit more than 26 states, and we just launched Canada as well, and a lot of new destinations from New York that we're looking forward to add this year. Just moving to the next slide. The partner who's applying today is one of close to 50 companies in the US who runs buses under the FlixBus brand. New York is, as you can imagine, is the largest market in the US, and when we approached that market, we really wanted to do things the right way. So we went looking for the best operator because it's not an easy market to run into. And we identified Eastern. We work usually a lot with companies that were founded. We like to work directly with slightly smaller companies because usually, especially family-owned companies, will be able to deliver better quality because they are so much closer to the ground and to the business. And they also come with a very unique local and regional business expertise. So Eastern is our partner in New York. We started with them about close now to actually 4 years ago. But they have served New York and the Northeast corridor since more than 10 years now, since 2009. They're really known across. It's also, beside the Flix name, even the Eastern name is really known and respected across the industry and their customers for their professional and reliable service. They operate from New York. Their yard is in Gowanus, Brooklyn. The founder of Eastern is also with us today, David, and we are together. We're looking forward to answer any questions that you might have. This part is very important. I know it's very important for you. Flix is the secret of our success. I've just mentioned is technology, and the technology helps checking in. I just take one step back. If you are a Flix passenger, you can find your bus. You know when your bus is arriving, so you don't have to wait on the sidewalk. When your bus is arriving, you come on the sidewalk, the bus comes in, and then the driver can check you in, and very quickly, because it's a QR code, and it just takes a few seconds per passenger. And as you can see every day on our Midtown lot, you can have a full bus come in and out in less than 10 minutes. And this is really supported by our technology and the training. Flix trains every driver on the fleet to use the tools and to help process passengers quickly. On top of that, since New York is such a special market, we also invest in having personnel on the ground to help accelerate things. So on many of those departures, we actually have sometimes now 2 people checking in and helping with luggage, so to make sure that things can be processed quickly and that we don't take too much of that very valuable space. We also support our passengers as a 24/7 traffic control to support drivers in stations. It's all our drivers know that they can speak to someone at any time of the day in any language, and it's the same, of course, for the customers. We are, even though it's a global brand now, the attention is always very local. So this application, as you know, Flix has a stop right opposite Penn Station. It's a lot that we've been renting with our partners, and we've been looking for the best stop in New York, and some of the criteria that we used is quick access for the buses, it's just a couple of blocks away from the exit of the tunnel, is also very quick access and easy access for the passengers. And as you know, there's a lot of space on both sides of that curbside, and of course, easy access through very good transportation network. It's really the beating heart of New York, right? That corner. And actually, the CB4 recommended this location as far as recently as 2009, and I feel I couldn't say it better. So after researching alternate locations that would be suitable for intercity buses, CB4 has identified that the north side of 31st Street has a very large sidewalk with no adjacent commercial or residential activity. So while you have, I mean, it's basically a curbside between a bus stop and a train station. So it doesn't get, we feel it doesn't get any better. That's why we ask for the privilege of using it for Eastern Coach service. And it actually has a history as a curbside stop, since Gunter Charter, which is another historic player in the New York area, has been using this prior to the works on the station, and is now also going to come back. So we will be sharing this stop with Gunter Charters in very good intelligence. We've already connected with them, and they're also a good operator, and we feel that together we're going to be very good caretakers of that space. Maybe Andrew, you want to. Andrew is working in New York and did a bit of research following the call yesterday. That's maybe one thing about Flix, is that we try to be really reactive. So anything you will ask, we want to take into account and to try to work with. So maybe Andrew, you want to tell us a little bit about a bit more about this area as we double click on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's certainly, as you alluded to before, Pierre, an area that I know very well, and that you know very well, and that Dan knows very well. This is, where we work. Our, the lot that we have most of our operations at is at that corner at 31st and 8th Avenue, and our office is at 31st and 9th Avenue. So I walk on this curb every single day. I walk on the sidewalk every single day, and I can tell you that this is a prime location for intercity bus stop, and a prime location for us to use as an intercity bus stop. And we feel that the current use of this space is really inefficient, and it's not the most efficient use of this space. Currently, it's a taxi stand from the side doors of Moynihan Train Hall in the center of the block down to 8th Avenue, all on 31st Street. And it's really underused as a taxi stand. There may be one or two cabs there at a time, but it's many times throughout the day, it's empty. We were able to analyze some data from Curb, which is the company that you would contact to get a cab. And there were only 147 taxi pickups at the stand for the month of May in 2020, which averages about 4.5 a day per the weekday and 5.5 on a weekend day. So this is quite low, especially compared to the rest of the district. And so, I think in our conversations, we spoke about how this space, really should be auxiliary to the uses that are happening at Moynihan Train Hall. And we looked into some of our ridership data, and we found out about 12.3% of our ridership out of New York City is coming from either Long Island or New Jersey. So we feel that, it would be really, really important to link our services directly to the services that are being offered at Moynihan Train Hall. So we can, we believe in really providing a regional connection between our services throughout the Northeast region to throughout the entire city. This is a really important subway hub, and also throughout the entire metropolitan area, so we can better connect with Long Island passengers and New Jersey passengers who are coming in on New Jersey Transit and Long Island Railroad. And we believe that we can be good stewards of this space. Currently there's just a bunch of cars parked there. Most of them aren't cabs. We don't even know who most of these cars are who, use this space when there are cars in this space. We have the technology and the management and the staff to manage it well, to ensure that there's pedestrian flow, and to ensure that there's benefits for everybody here.
Not to mention idling cars at many times that we've seen.
Absolutely.
Maybe, Dan, you want to say a few words about the DOT approval criteria that becomes a bit more technical. Dan actually has a background as a planner in transportation. So I feel you are the best person to walk us through that.
Thanks, Pierre. And yeah, just wanted to go over the criteria that the DOT uses when determining whether or not to grant these permits. Probably a refresher for most of the folks here on the committee, but also just helpful context for the members of the public in attendance. So the things they look at are whether or not it would harm traffic, pedestrian flow, and safety. They look at what the preferences of the permit applicant are, and they look at the location of the planned garage or parking location for layovers, basically how it works with the bus operator's operation. Andrew, next slide, please. And as far as traffic, I mean, Pierre mentioned this already, but this is about as kind of surgical as it gets. This bus stop location is about 1.5 blocks away from Dyer Avenue, the entrance to the Lincoln Tunnel. So buses coming from out of the city through the Lincoln Tunnel, they basically come down 30th Street and then up around the corner on 31st, make the stop, and again, very expedited stops. And then they're just on their way back to the tunnel out of the city. So it's about as minimal impact as you can get. Eastern's yard is also, it's located in Brooklyn. So buses, when they come and arrive, and they can make a stop. If they do need to stage beforehand, if they get there early, we do have a lot right adjacent to it. So again, really minimizing the impact on this block. There won't be buses standing that aren't loading, and minimizing the impact to traffic as well. Next slide, please. Looking at also pedestrian flow. So I guess this is a curb lane, so it's not even used as a travel lane. So again, no impact to traffic there. And our stops, as Pierre spoke about, they're about as fast and efficient as you can get, usually about 10 minutes. And we, again, have staff at the location right across the street, the parking lot. So those folks can help manage the boarding and keep the queuing passengers out of the way to keep the sidewalk clear. And then also, just, I know, again, as Andrew said, I work right around here too, and I know it's frustrating. Sidewalks can be crowded. But really, this is not one of those type of sidewalks. There really is decent space. And just for example, in the DEIS that was done for the Penn Station plan, the studies that were done there showed the 2038 scenarios in the no action and with action scenarios were either an LOS, that's level of service, B or C. And those are measures that engineers use to study congestion. So anything below an LOSD, so an LOSE and LOSF are considered congested conditions. So that really shows that this block is really not that congested in the grand scheme of things. And we think with staff managing the queuing, that would remain to be the case. And I want to turn it back to Pierre to talk about safety. Thanks.
Obviously, everything starts and ends with safety, right? And Flix, a bit like what we saw earlier.
Comment manger? Sorry.
So Flix really tries to, we try to be a good student, and we, especially when it comes to safety, we are going above and beyond. So the practices that we agree upon with our partners are the right for that type of service exceed both state and federal requirements. So 10-hour minimum nightly resting time for dayline drivers. So you don't arrive in the evening and start very early the next day. So anytime at night, it's a 2-driver crew between midnight and 5:30 a.m. That's when you are the most at risk, and drivers are being told again and again that you are tired, you just stop, it's okay. And that's when there are 2 drivers. Even during the day, if there's 1 driver, there's no pressure to just make the time right. There's never more than four night shifts in a row. And 11 hours the minimum daily resting time for nighttime drivers. So a longer resting time, very important. And then finally, there's of course, a minimum weekly time. So it's a 40-hour. You can only drive 45 hours a week, and that's it. Not 1 minute more. If we go to the next slide, that's a picture that was taken yesterday, I believe, or maybe by the weather. It might even have been taken today. This is the Flix lot. You can see you have 2 people on top of the bus driver. 2 people as the bus is backing down, just making sure that it's doing so safely. So we like data, but we also like images. I feel it's worth a lot of data points to just show that image. If we go ahead.
That's it.
So that's the last slide. So this is really in orange. You can see this taxi stand that we hope that to replace with the coach curbside bus stop. And while I'm really looking forward to answer any question that you might have, take in any comment, and working together to make it happen.
And just to clarify one more point, this would not be the total elimination of that taxi stand in front of Moynihan Train Hall. It would only be the concatenating it over here between the side doors and 150 feet down. So that taxi stand would still exist for quite a bit of the block.
For 4 people a day use it, right? For four pickups a day.
We got it. Okay. So let me, Dale, you are first, or is this an old hand?
No, I do have some comments. Thank you for the presentation.
Can you close the picture? Okay, thank you so much.
And just a couple of things to preface our discussion of this. First of all, I just want to
Dale, let me introduce. Yesterday, Dale and I went to visit the location and visit the existing lot. There is a parking lot which is used by them. And so I just wanted you to know that we did. Okay, Dale.
Had a small meeting. Yes, Christine and I had a small meeting yesterday. But also we had a small meeting with Flixbus some years ago, and the suggestion to rent this parking lot came from Christine and I. So I consider us mommy, that parking lot's mommy and daddy. So we appreciate that you took our suggestion. And I actually do find it a very interesting and compelling model for intercity bus service in a city where the main bus terminal is oversubscribed and will be under construction for a decade. So I do appreciate that you have a footprint in a very prime area on private property. Now, a couple of other background points. And Pierre, just so you know, I don't think that there's an actual separation of intercity bus riders and this committee. Because I take intercity buses. Well, I used to take more of them before COVID, but I take intercity buses all the time for work and personal reasons, including having bought tickets on Flix out on the West Coast. So I don't think that's a real, I think that separation is artificial, actually. And the other thing is the 2009 recommendation that you referred to. That's true. CB4 did recommend that location in 2009, but that was when that building was an underused post office facility and not a train hall. So that recommendation has expired by virtue of the fact of the changes on the block. And then finally, we had some, in our discussion with your colleagues on the ground in New York, we had some discussions about some alternative locations. We've also gotten a letter since our meeting yesterday from Vornado, from the main operator of Moynihan Train Hall. And they are opposed to this because they essentially look at Flixbus as a direct competitor to a main stakeholder in the train hall because of the routes you run. So in other words, Amtrak goes basically everywhere you go. So they're saying, like, why would we provide curbside to a competitor of one of the main stakeholders in the train hall? That's their objection. I appreciate you developing the data about the intermodality of your customer base, but it's not super compelling if that's the data, if that's the stat. And, we've made some recommendations for other very nearby locations that would be better off. And also, as I said to your folks on the ground in New York, I believe that we've been opposed to curbside buses in this part of our district for a long time. And I believe that if we provided one, it would be like opening the floodgates of hell, because many other operators would say, we wish to co-locate on that space. So if you were to achieve what you're going for, you might find it taken away from you very quickly. So with that, I'll turn it over to my colleagues on the committee.
All right, Brett.
All right, thank you. Hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. I very much appreciate that you guys do have a surface lot that gets used very well. And I do also appreciate the idea that this could be a transportation hub. I might be a little different than Dale in terms of where you go. You guys do have a lot of locations that are not directly competing with Amtrak. You guys own Greyhound, so you have a lot of flexibility in where you can go in your route. So I think that concept is good. I don't remember exactly what we recommended in 2009, but my recollection is it probably would have been farther west, and I'd be having a much different reaction to this proposal if we were looking at something farther away from 8th Avenue. 8th Avenue, this intersection in particular has been those others on the committee know that I've been kind of harping on this intersection a lot. Your buses are off the curb, but one of the things that's happening at this intersection that is becoming a big problem, and you are part of the problem that needs to be addressed, I think, by DOT, is there's a lot of traffic here of just riders being dropped off and picked up at the train station, and also somewhat at your bus station. And I think that there needs to be something done about this intersection, because with the new light cycling with the left turn arrows, that's helped with the safety somewhat. It's also really lengthened the time that the time between when pedestrians can safely cross 31st Street. Cars are constantly stopping at that intersection and blocking that crosswalk. So given how close your station is, this looks like the nightmare that we used to have on 34th and 8th when we had one of your other competitors with the stop there, and it took a really long time to get them to move farther west. So if we were talking about a station for a stop for you guys farther west on this block, somewhere mid-block that didn't interfere with Moynihan Station, I think that would be worth at least exploring. I can care less about Amtrak and Vornado having competition fares. I think we all need to think about transportation holistically. But I do think that being that close to 8th Avenue is just going to make a problem intersection into a nightmare. So I hope there's a solution, but that's my feeling. I can't support this location.
All right, Brett. Jesse.
So Brett, I take those words seriously about, we do need a holistic approach, and obviously, we recognize that Amtrak is not currently up to it doesn't have capacity, and at the price point that it's delivering service to New York, to DC and to Boston, I understand the need for other options for users. But my concern, I don't know if I missed it, I'm sorry. So the permit application here is for service to DC, Boston, and to Ithaca, New York. Is that correct? Those are the three locations? Yes. Okay, so Amtrak runs to 2 of those 3. Is that also correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Could you give us an example of price points or I don't know if you mentioned it already or I missed it, of what an average DC to New York or Boston to New York price would be?
Just real quick, Jesse, just so you know, I was bringing the letter that we received from Vornado to the committee's attention at large. I'm not endorsing their position. I'm just simply stating the facts of their letter.
No, I mean, I just am, I am curious
Oh,
about
absolutely.
the
Continue the line of
long-term implications of, I mean, it's not because you even brought it up. This was the thought I had in my head before you even mentioned
continue
it.
the line of
The
inquiry. But that's
long-term
not-
implications of saying, hey, we built this whole brand new train station because we want to encourage people to use the trains, and then to shove people out, to have them arrive from Long Island and New Jersey, and to have them walk out and start using these much more, heavily polluting buses. So I just want to, if there is, if it's sufficiently undercutting the price right now, that makes a lot more sense. But I just want to make sure that we're all thinking about the long-term implications of coming out and
So
saying,
what are the prices? Help us here.
Absolutely. If I can just chime in on 1 second. So, you said highly polluting buses. So actually, if you calculate it on a per passenger mile, intercity buses have the lowest carbon footprint per passenger mile.
Yeah, but that's not the question, Andrew.
And absolutely. The question is, what's the price point? And it's usually about $37 New York to Boston midweek, and as opposed to Amtrak, which is upwards of $100.
You're looking at around $9 per.
Right.
The cost of 100 kilometers of Flix is $8 to $10. If you book,
Yeah, but that's not the question either.
I mean, that makes it.
Could you just
37.
possibly answer the question? There was one question, which is how much it is. We got the answer, 37. Thank you. Jesse, you got your answer?
Yeah, I did. I have to say, I do appreciate the context, and I do appreciate the answers that have been given. $37, I think, is not, not Amtrak can be insanely expensive. It could be $100 ticket. I think if you buy ahead enough, it can be in the, $40 to $50 range. So it's not, but no, the concern does come from an environmental standpoint. We as a committee are concerned about traffic, certainly about the congestion to that area. That is a real concern, and the questions that you're going to be asked are about that. But we're also concerned about the environment, and if our long-term goal is to get people to stop driving. We're all on board with that. But then to turn to public transit in the long term that our state and federal dollars are going towards to supporting, I am uncomfortable doing, taking a vote that's really undermining, could be, and I don't, I think your points are well taken, could be undermining the progress that this state has been making. And so I'm just raising those points. And not to say that your business should not run, but the idea being, if you park right in front of the train station, it's sort of a tacit endorsement of hey, the bus is a completely viable, great alternative, which it might be, but I just want us to think about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jesse. That's a good point. Pierre, we are getting all the comments from the committee. Alan.
Thank you, Christine. I would concur with most of the comments that have already been made, but my concern is coming down 30th Street. There's traffic that comes from the west side, oftentimes very heavy traffic coming out of the tunnel. I'm not familiar since they've reconfigured that portion, but it seems to me that it's a tight turn onto 30th Street, which is a small street, which is a residential street where you could have somebody stopping and double parking because they're picking somebody up, or an emergency vehicle that stopped there to attend to folks. So I don't think that's a great street to be coming around 8th Avenue and then going down to that. So that's my new concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
David?
Yes, forgive me, my question is going to be parochial and a little bit unrelated, but very quick. Do you allow bikes, and do you charge extra for bikes on your buses?
Not currently. We are running a pilot in the Northwest to test economic viability. In Europe, and about 80+% of our markets, bikes are allowed on the bus, and we hope to have the first bike carrying equipped buses in the Northeast running either end of this year or early next year. It's on the agenda. It's also something that we encourage in the Northwest. The first tests were quite satisfactory. It just takes a lot of time. There are no parts right now, as you know, the supply chain makes it really hard.
So you're going to have a test in when?
So we already have been testing it for more than a year now in the Northwest, so Seattle to Portland. We have a small network.
Okay. All right.
And
And what about
we-
New York on the east?
End of this year, early next year.
Okay.
The first
All right.
rollout.
Thank
The
you.
sooner the better.
All
It's,
right,
it's a
Jesse.
priority for us, believe it.
Another
Just
Jesse.
brief. Sorry, I'm not trying to berate the point. It is just the more facts are helpful. And again, I think the context that you guys are giving is great, and it's so great that you're so knowledgeable. Do you happen to know anyone off the top of their head, or an estimate of what percentage of Flixbus routes in Europe cover existing rail linkage? So cities that are connected by rail, where Flixbus is also operating on that same route. Or is the method of operation in Europe to connect cities that are not otherwise connected by rail?
I can maybe try to answer the question without giving me that specific piece of data. Flix launched in Europe on the back of market openings. So Germany actually did not have a liberalized intercity bus market when Flix launched when the market opened. In the years since the opening, you had this basically what took 100 years to build in the US appeared in 3 years in Germany.
But Pierre, could we focus on the answer?
Okay, so what we saw is that when market opened in Germany, the ridership of the trains did not go down. If anything, it increased. So modal part of train increased as a global part of all trains.
But again, that's not the answer to his question. If you don't have the answer, that's okay. You can return. You can give it back to us tomorrow or in 3 days.
So I'd say, I mean, that's just my guesstimate. I'd say about 50% of our trips are covering, and in the US it's less than that. Yeah.
Brett?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, just to follow up, because you currently do have that parking lot as a location for your trip departures and arrivals. Would you be adding capacity to this block by having the stop, or is this going to replace that surface lot?
Or completing it. The lot is sometimes at capacity, and
they're adding to capacity.
Okay.
They are expanding.
Thank you for the clarification.
Right. So let me tell you some of the question we posed and the concern we expressed in our small meeting. The main question I personally expressed is the taxi stand. The taxi stand different. I have a different perception. I have picture of the taxi stand with full of taxis overflowing even to the pedestrian crossing. So it may be at certain time of the days. It's maybe when the train comes in. I don't know whether there is a difference, right? When the train comes from Washington, then everything is full. So I don't know whether my view of what was happening there is that there is a lot of taxi, Ubers, etc., waiting there. Okay, and so that's the first point. The second point, indeed, when we made the comment, then what Dale said was when it was a post office, but now the taxi stand have been requested by the station on each side to service the station. And I don't think any of us want to see those taxis move to 8th Avenue, which is a mess, right? So we are much better off having all the taxis being on the side street. The second major problem that I see and that we have collectively seen for the last 12 years is as soon as you have a loading, unloading on the sidewalk, first of all, it would be every half hour, right? So you are going to have a queue, and the queue is taking that sidewalk is already, because they installed the bollards for the station, the sidewalk is already smaller than it should be for the type of sidewalk. And you know that you are going to have your sidewalk completely occupied every half hour. So you know that if there is anybody who wants to go get a cab further up or further down, they won't be able to pass, because we have seen that in front of Dale's building, which is twice as big sidewalk, and it's immediately completely occupied by everybody. So and it's not a criticism of Flixbus, it's just the nature of the business. Once you have people coming in, you're going to have the sidewalk completely occupied. So I personally do not support it. We have indicated to them that there are two locations that they should explore, one on 33rd Street and one on 30th Street, but next on Dyer Avenue. And that would be my recommendation, that we create, I mean, and Dale's, you know, that we recommend a denial at this place, but we offer the other two locations as alternative. And those other two locations are really close by. I mean, you know, they are within one block, so they are not unreasonably far. And they are generally closer to the slot that they could use, because they have bought a company which is called, what is it called?
Greyhound?
Greyhound. So they are called Flix, but this is Greyhound, right? And that's a very large company. Greyhound had a lot of space on 11th Avenue and 36th Street, which had been approved, which we had negotiated a long time ago. And, you know, that would be the natural place to go. So we are proposing two locations which are closer to Penn, which are closer than what we would otherwise recommend. And I think this is a very good option, because otherwise we would have definitely recommended 11th Avenue.
Also, just to discuss one other thing, which is the, you know, when we were down there, we did witness a kind of aggregation of taxis at the near to the corner of 8th Avenue and 30th Street, because there is one entrance that has been open for way. And by the way, we also, to preface this, you know, the train hall, Moynihan Train Hall, is fairly new. It's less than, what is it, 2 years? So I think New Yorkers, travelers alike are getting accustomed to new patterns. And we saw that the taxi drop-offs were happening more principally near the corner, where there's an entrance that's been open for way longer than the full station has been open. So the taxis are accustomed to doing a drop there. I think we should, you know, reply to the Vornado letter and say, you need a taxi stand manager down there to direct the vehicles down to the full length of the stand.
I agree with that.
And
too.
get some of the traffic, the drop-off traffic, to the entrance, the mid-block entrance.
Right.
Because yeah, and you know this, Brett, living there, because we literally saw taxis impeding the intersection because there was, instead of going forward and going closer to the mid-block entrance. So I think it's a little bit of like some bad, you know, inculcated bad habits, and it can be solved with somebody, you know, live on the ground there from Vornado or from, you know, from Moynihan Station.
So that's, I mean, that's my recommendation, and I'd love to hear whether we have a resolution on that.
So that would be like two letters, one responding to this one directed at this application with the alternatives, and one reply to Vornado to request taxi stand management personnel.
Yeah.
So I make the motion for Christine's recommendations.
And Viren second. All in favor? Opposed? Opposed, Blake? No, in favor. Okay.
In favor, sorry.
Right, I'm sorry. It was.
I'm also in favor. Sorry, I couldn't get to my hand raised enough.
Okay, and
Christine, I'm sorry. Can we vote on each letter separately? Just so I have a vote for each one.
Right.
Okay.
So letter number one, no to this location and proposal for two other locations. All in favor? Okay, opposed, present non-eligible, that's it. And letter to Vornado asking for a taxi manager near the corner. All in favor? Opposed? Present, non-eligible. That's it, that passes.
Thank you.
So Pierre, I mean, we really appreciate that you took a lot there. We have given you an example to everybody else and say, why don't you do like Flix? They are doing the right thing. And I hope that one of the two, I've already written to the Port Authority asking them whether the place on 30th Street would be available. And we hope that one of the two options is going to be available and will be, useful to you. I didn't raise the issue, by the way, of the safety. I mean, Eastern doesn't have the greatest safety record by the Federal Bus Association, and you should look into that. There are a lot of speeding, especially in the last year. And so I hope you're going to, kind of, if you do a contract with them, or if you have a contract with them, you are really going to pay attention to that. This was a little disappointing. Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our last item is, we don't have to vote on that, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. I looked at the presentation, a number of presentations which were made to Queens Community Board 1 on the Link 5G installation. And just to remind everyone, these are those major 30-feet towers which have a 5G encasement where they can put multiple 5G that they are installing in front of buildings. And I mean, what was very, if you watch the video, what is very concerning to me is that a lot of people were raising the issue of health and the impact on people which were living in the building and the kind of symptoms they got after the 5G was installed. Talking about not being able to sleep, massive headaches, massive, etc. And then some doctors and professors coming from Boston and New Hampshire confirming that these were not accidents and they were not crazy people, but this was an observed system. It's worse than the balloon, let's put it this way. So I wanted to bring it up to your attention. In the past, our position has been, we don't want those things because they are ugly and they are on the sidewalk, but it looks like the implications for the health are much bigger than I ever expected. And, I don't know at which point we may want to send a letter saying, based on what we have heard at, on Queens and CB1, we ask that you do not install any of them in our neighborhood. And until, the health situation has been addressed. Because I was shocked by the testimonies. I mean, I was really shocked. So I wanted to bring it to you. Maybe you want to look at the video again and we can pick it up next month. But I think this is real. People are, it's in front of their windows and they're getting sick. And I don't think we want that for our community members. So opening the floor here. Charlie.
Thanks for bringing this up, Christine. I was not able to watch the video from the other community boards, and I'm not particularly educated on the health concerns. I know that sort of broad concern of 5G has been put into the sort of conspiracy theorist bin in the past, but I'm certainly open to new data that it is causing health concerns. I just wanted to say that I don't want to see any of these massive 30-foot towers in our neighborhood for any reason. They look ridiculous. I guess the 5G isn't really serving the underserved.
No,
It's just like a benefit. I guess it's a way to pay for the towers, but I don't think we need the towers. I was reading through some of the plan that was on the Dropbox of how they, everywhere that there was a payphone, they think they can put, one of these. That's absurd. There were too many payphones. Even at the height of people needing payphones, they put payphones everywhere just to have advertising on our streets.
Yeah.
There are blocks in Hell's Kitchen where there were like 7 phones, like a 3 box and a 2 box and a 1 box, like on the same block. And they were there to serve advertising and to make revenue. So I don't want, if you walk down 10th Avenue, there's Link NYCs, like between on 53rd and 54th, there's 2 Link NYCs, and then across the street, another one. And it's like walking by pop-up advertising that you can't turn off. And yes, 25% of the time, there's a message for this community board meeting. Like there are some community things 25% of the time, but 75% of the time is an alcohol ad. And I don't need to see advertising on the street like that. So if 5G is another thing that we can put on this as a reason to slow it down, delay it, or stop it, I'm for it. But I recognize that there are some people that don't have a cell phone or have a broken cell phone and need to dial 911 or 311. But surely we could have one every 4 blocks, or some other solution for that.
Alan?
Yeah, just a question. The references to the health presentations from the doctors, is that in the video or is that part of the letter?
It was in the video of the CB1, yes, of the Queen CB1. You have to look through it, but it was less. There was a NYPD officer who has sued the city, and he explained what happened. The guy said he had to leave his house. He had to move because his sister and himself completely, they went to the doctors nonstop. They couldn't they finally figure what it was, etc. And then the medical doctor that was speaking from New Hampshire said, this is not an isolated incident. It's something which is happening across the board. So when I heard that, I was just completely shocked.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Jesse.
Sorry, I think that answered my question. I'm just trying to figure out, like, I'm going through everything now, the sources of information
Right.
on this.
No, I think we can take the time
wanna-
now that we talked about. You guys can go back and listen to the document, because it's just stunning, and then we can regroup and say, okay, do we want to run? The last letter we sent essentially said we don't want it, but now we have even more. Okay, Viren.
Well, sorry, but just real quick, I just wanted to say, it's just important before we,
Yes.
we can kick off. I don't want to be caught up in some wave of conspiracy theories by accident here. So I just want to make sure that.
Oh, yeah.
Do anything. We're not.
And I bring it to you because I'm not the type of getting hysterical, but
right. Okay.
when I saw that, I said, wait a minute, if this does that, then we need to take action. Viren.
Yeah, I think beyond the sort of health concerns for which we still need some more information and data, the problem is, even in terms of the scale and size of the bloody thing, is 32 feet tall. It's practically more than 3-story tall.
Yes.
And, I have absolutely no clue as to what kind of technology it might actually be sort of incorporating moving forward. So I think the question for the committee would be to ask the city to make a presentation, tell us what is this and what it entails. Something that we need to know.
The problem is that the city has made presentations say everything is cool, because it's so I don't think we are getting the full. I don't know. I think you guys need to watch the thing and come back and tell me whether you feel that I'm overreacting or
no, you're not.
This is a legitimate concern. What I'm concerned is that because that thing is at 32 feet, it's right in front of the window of somebody. And when I heard this guy say, I had to leave my apartment, I had to leave my house, I was so sick.
That's no, you're right. It's substantially large. It's going to be on the sidewalk, which should also concern us because bulkier than Link NYC.
Oh yeah.
Screen is much. I've actually seen the one in the actual physical piece of it. I've actually seen it. It is really, particularly in places like Chelsea, where the sidewalks are tinier.
Yeah.
You will have quite a few.
Oh, like 44th Street or 46th Street, where your sidewalk is minuscule, you know. Okay, all right. So I get it, Blake.
Yeah, was there any indication of why there might be a different health impact from these Link 5G installations versus other 5G installations?
You know, they touched on it. I cannot repeat it because I'm not competent on the subject, but you should really listen to the thing. And yes, they were explaining why this is more than the business as usual, more than the sale and whatever. They did explain that in the video, but I didn't absorb it. And
thanks,
Charles.
Yeah, just to echo what Bjorn said. I mean, if you guys haven't seen one of these in person, it's staggering. There's one on the Lower East Side. I was trying to look it up. It's on like Grand and Essex. I mean, go see how tall these things are in person. And then, yeah, in terms of the person who has, you know, this tower in front of their window, whether or not the 5G is, you know, literally giving them headaches or psychological or just stressing them out psychosomatically. My problem is that it's not providing any service for the person in that building. I mean, it's.
Oh, that's true.
You know, I guess it's Wi-Fi as well as 5G, but you know, the city should be spending money to provide Wi-Fi like a public utility for, you know, certainly the underserved, if not all citizens, and not, this is not the way to do it.
So what I like to do is, you know, table it. Now we have discussed a little bit, maybe you have the time to listen and you look at it. And then, because we have already made a resolution saying we don't want it, this is not good, right? So only if we have new information should we write another letter. And in my mind, the new information is that there are questions about, you know, the health aspect of it. But I'd like to hear what you want to say, and then next month we can just talk about it if you have read any information. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. Any new business? Oh, Jaya and Miriam Fisher. Okay, so Janine, can you bring Jaya? Maybe he wants to talk. They wanted to talk about this matter.
Sure, I'll bring both of them.
Right. Yes, Jaya.
Hey, Christine. Yeah, this was new business, so not a comment on this.
Oh,
topic.
okay, good. New business. That's where we are. Go
ahead. Can I wanted to bring up some issues I've observed with challenges with sort of merging at a couple intersections, particularly 8th Ave and 43rd and Dyer and 42nd. Can I share my screen? Yes, maybe. Hopefully this will be pretty quick. Can you see this?
Yes.
Us. Okay, great. I can't see you guys now, but I'll run this pretty quick. So I've sort of been observing sort of a lot of issues, especially in the evening on the 8th Ave at 43rd, where unfortunately DOT never came back and finished the 42nd to 43rd Street block. So it still has this old configuration of 4 lanes, and it sort of merges down to 2 there. And unfortunately, DOT removed all the markings, so it's actually worse than before. And so there's a lot of conflict at that intersection, and it creates a lot of sort of, you know, spill back in the intersection, all that kind of stuff. And they never sort of finished and brought it to this design, which would narrow it to 2 lanes and 1 lane turning left. So that's sort of one topic. You can see the sort of current conditions here. I took this the other day. This was a time when it wasn't full of cars, but often it is, and so it becomes the bottleneck as the street narrows down. So I think, you know, my asks here are, you know, I think we need DOT to finish this block. I know it maybe is on the queue to be repaved this year, but I think also still an opportunity, since it's not finished, to sort of expand the bike lane to match sort of capacity there and straighten it out. Unlike their sort of, you know, design, which was sort of a back and forth on that block. So This is one area that I wanted to bring up. And then the other one is sort of dire as it comes out on West 42nd. This is sort of another area where the street is, completely unmarked. On paper, it's supposed to be 3 lanes with a contraflow bus lane. In practice, oftentimes it ends up being 4 or 5 lanes turning onto 42nd Street. If just to sort of refresh everyone's memory, when DOT did the project in 2019 on 42nd Street, there's now really only sort of 1 lane right and left to turn onto. So here's Dyer, and you end up with cars turning into the bus lanes at all times. And so actually I was surprised to see that DOT's presentation was to do a study to come back and narrow Dyer down. This block is actually like 60 feet wide. It's humongous. So I think the ask here is like, if we can get DOT to narrow that to 2 lanes, one that can turn, east, one that can turn west, and sort of make the bus lane permanent and paint it red like they do elsewhere.
Okay, so Alan, your hand is up, or it's an old hand?
No, it's up. This is also an observation, recent observation, and it concerns the intersection of 22nd and 11th. On the south side, this is before crossing over 11th to where the new dog park is, and then going across the highway. So on the south side is the new related building, and on the north side is the new related building, and on the south side, what used to be I forget what company. Anyway, it's a new school that opened up, private school, and it used to be a city bike rack there. I think a while back we had a presentation. I think it was this committee about more bike stations along the west side, and I believe it was this committee. I'm not sure. Maybe it was Parks. But there was a bike station that was removed because of the construction going on the north side, and Related has taken over half the street, fenced in for construction materials. So today I'm coming back from the dog park, and there are cars, and there's no standing signs there, and there are about 5 or 6 cars parked in the no standing zone, some of which are up on the sidewalk because half the roadway is gone. And I'm looking, and it looks like there are, as was brought up, about placards, but these aren't placards. These are letters from the school, very nicely typed up and signed by, I think, the principal or somebody, stating that the school gives these cars permission to park here.
Okay, so Alan, hold on 1 second. I think you and I should go and walk there, so I understand, because this is like
I can send you pictures. Might be easy.
Yeah, but we can also walk there, and so that I get a better idea of what you are talking about, and how and maybe next month we can put it on the agenda and put a letter for that.
Okay.
Right?
Anytime, let me know.
Is that good?
Sounds
okay.
Good to me. Thank you.
No, let's
What's the name of that school?
Basics Independent.
Okay, right. Got it.
Ocean, I think.
Yeah, Hewlett Packard used to be in the building for many years.
So we'll walk there, and hopefully Dale can come with us, and then we can see what really is going on, and then that's good, because I'm not familiar enough with what you're talking about to absorb.
And you can see the new dog park, and you can see the construction going on in Chelsea Waterside Park. It's wonderful.
Right.
Okay.
So Dyer and 42nd Street, we sent a letter, right, Dale?
I pulled it up. It's from August of 2022.
Right. So that is
it basically mimics your asks. I just read through it.
Right.
And
I must have missed that one then.
And the second thing which is happening that I don't think we have all discussed is that between West 42nd, between 7 and 8, is going to be undergoing a major construction where the sidewalk are going to be widened, and the roadway is going to be narrowed, right? So what we're going to do is take the opportunity of that construction to raise the issue of Dyer Avenue, because we're going to say, if nobody can go through during the construction, we need to stop cars from coming in here. So my plan was go to the meeting on the construction and then say, well, what do we do? Where do we stop the cars from coming in? You know, and try to send all the cars to 41st and 40. Okay, so that was my tactic to hopefully raise that issue and say, guys, that doesn't work. As long as we have the whole Port Authority sending stuff there, that is not going to work. So that's what takes care of that, right?
And just to confirm, there was no action since we sent this letter on Dyer, yeah.
43rd Street, well, I understand that Port Authority may have been working on that, but this is like a long term, where the construction on 42nd Street is going to give us the leverage to say, you've got to do it now. You can't wait anymore. The 43rd thing, you know, if you send us the presentation, we'll send an admin letter as a follow-up, because we have already sent a bunch of letters as follow-up. My understanding is that DOT is going to come back this season and redo a portion of this, including 43rd. But that will be a good reminder. We can send an admin letter. Okay?
Cool. Thank you.
You're good with that? Good. And then Miriam, what's going on?
Okay, let's call this new, old, unfinished business about the safety of the area. And this goes back to March 2021 when the Transportation Committee wrote a letter to the head of DOT about safety in the immediate area and reconfiguring some of the traffic lights. It took 3 years, but I was persistent. I got an answer from him, and I sent it to Christine and Dale way back in November, but I never heard an answer. So I saw at the committee board meeting, there were several people talking about transportations, but I spoke there. I was told no, but I wasn't told where to go. So I asked Jesse where, and he said at the transportation meeting. So let me, I don't know where to go, but I would ask, I'm asking for your feedback. I got you the letter. Please, let's do what we
Miriam,
can.
there is the problem we have. The problem we have is that none of us has a solution. So when we look at the letter, we get, you know, we have put in all our requests on bike lane that they change the timing, but they are not doing it, right? So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we can send another letter to our elected officials and say, look, you have to do something about that. And I'm happy to do it, but I'm a little bit out of resource of what are we going to do next?
Well, I could, his answer to me is about 2 sentences if I could read it, but I do want to say a couple of things first. As we all know, there was a pedestrian hit killed by a bicyclist a block from where I live, 22nd and 8th last August. When I had back surgery, I walked to 8th Avenue with a physical therapist who's assigned to Chelsea and the Village, and he says he sees many people in rehab, walkers who have been hit by bicycles. When we went to 8th Avenue, I was almost hit by a bike about a foot away. I lost my balance and I grabbed the arm of the physical therapist. He said, don't walk across 8th Avenue. Well, that makes my life very difficult. The post office box is across 8th Avenue. For months, I was asking people, there's the box, can you cross for me? This is very uncomfortable. I live on 21st and 8th, directly across from PS 11. As you know, and you may or may not have read about it, but they signed a number of policemen there in the last week because there have been a lot of incidents. Some bicycles zoom past as the kids were coming out of school. So I asked some policemen what do you do about that? And the answer is basically, would I go over to the precinct and tell them there were a lot of bicycles there? I've spoken to many PO people on the street, and they said their, directions are go after the bad guys, go after the cars, and to run through the streets without licenses on the bikes and knowing who they are might just injure a lot of people. There has been 2 council members have actually asked for licensing of bikes. Stephen Holder, who presented it at the city council a while ago, and somebody was just hit, I think, in Park Slope, and I think it's Palladino just came out with a request for licensing. This is an option. It's a possibility. It is not popular. Obviously, with transportation alternatives, a lot of bikers. I was at a meeting with Brad Hoylman, and that came up. And he said, well, now we have more traffic lights. We can see the cars. And somebody in the audience who was blind said, you don't know who they are unless they have licenses. This is something to consider and maybe have as a dialogue, because that might be one way of reducing some of this. As you know, many people with disabilities are frightened. Many seniors are frightened. And here they were going across the pathway in the school as the kids were coming out, and the police were yelling, no, but they were gone, and I should go over myself to the precinct and tell them this. She could have called, and I've spoken to quite a few. Nothing is being done, but what can be done?
Right, Miriam, and that's the real question. And I think next month we're going to have a quote unquote hearing about bicycles, where people are not happy with that, with the bicycle behaviors, of certain bikes. And I think maybe it would be great to join and bring some of the people that are interested in that subject to come to that hearing. And maybe out of that hearing, we can have a vote on some various ideas. I mean, we have already voted and sent a letter on enforcement. So we could send a letter on enforcement to the Midtown South, as well as Chelsea, the 10th. And we could send the same letter that we sent to Midtown North. And that would be one step in the direction.
Well, let me add, I went to a transportation committee meeting months ago at CB5, and EJ, who I'm sure you know, said they had a subgroup within the transportation committee who was looking into the bikes, and he said the only thing that gets reported is somebody is amputated or beheaded. Nothing goes on paper. Very few incidents get reported, and the feeling was that they wanted to get together with all the transportation groups in in that area. I don't know if anything happened.
Yeah, right.
Did they ever contact you?
They did.
Did they ever contact you?
They did, but they didn't invite us to any meeting. So I'm not sure that there is actually a meeting. Hold on one second, Miriam. Jesse?
No, I just want to make sure Miriam knows that she's heard and supported. And,
Right.
I will say literally just today, I almost got taken out by delivery biker myself. And I'm looking forward to our own hearing on it in a month. And I have some own ideas that I would like to talk to you guys offline about other things that we could be suggesting. But Miriam, thank you for coming. And you're certainly, your statements are not falling on deaf ears.
Right.
As Christine and Dale have conveyed.
Yeah, I mean, it's very frustrating. It's like, what do you do? And that's very difficult. So navigating this fine line is very difficult and very frustrating. We try to send letters, etc., but that's typically what we need to do. So after the hearing next month, we'll take under advisement whatever recommendation we have from the from the committee. And from the public, obviously. Okay.
Well, Eric Botcher he's made proposals about training kids on some of the rules of biking in the public schools. And Eric is certainly somebody who's receptive to issues of accessibility and disability and so on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you know, and the training is a great idea, but this is about kids, you know, it doesn't
in the
address,
future.
yeah, right. It doesn't address what happens today. And what happens today is confusing and scary sometimes, and difficult to navigate. So Jesse, thank you for expressing that for all of us. And Miriam, let's put that on the agenda for next month, okay?
Let me add one thing. I was at part of the city council meeting yesterday. I couldn't go to the whole thing, and I'm actually drafting a letter. But what I heard is the concern about cars. I'm concerned about cars. I was hit by a taxi. My husband was one of the founders of Auto Free New York, but not about bicycles. And when I've reached out to TA and to Danny Harris, he'll acknowledge this is an issue, but he says nothing publicly to membership. He has a voice that would help, but he hasn't said anything. When I wrote a letter with them to get more open streets way back before the pandemic, they took out the sentences that I mentioned about the concern about bicycles running the light. This was the meeting on Vision Zero at the city council, and they said we don't want to say anything bad about bikes. We want more bike lanes. And I said, so do I. I was hit by a car. I know that. They are the main enemy, but don't minimize what happens. But they don't want to hear it. That's all I can say.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for your persistence. And hopefully next month we'll have a bigger discussion about that, a really comprehensive discussion, and try to scratch our heads about how to deal with it, which is not easy. So we'll be careful out there. Okay, thank you.
Will you mail my letters across 8th Avenue? The post office box is on the other side.
Well, we need to get you a post office box on that side. That's one solution. Okay, thank you so much. Are we ready for a motion to adjourn? Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you so much for everything and all the great input.
Thank you
guys. Okay, bye-bye.
Good night.